Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the biggest diplomacy game of all time. 81 players entered this Thunderdome. I don't know what number we're actually down to at this point, but we only got 1 year done in the first season, well, 1.5 years. So most of them are still on the board. It was an absolutely amazing response to the last episode, by the way, especially seeing all of the comments from the players, both correcting things that we'd said, and also just explaining their experiences, right? I noticed one in particular from Marseille, which, I mean, Marseille is really close to where I started. I'm in Ghent, and Marseille is right here, right? And there was so much going on with them. They only played for the first year, right? They got eliminated there. But there was so much going on just in that first year that I didn't have any idea of because I wasn't paying enough attention to that chat. So if you're interested, I very highly recommend going to that first episode and just reading some of the comments from the other players. It's absolutely fantastic. Speaking of which, I think, Ezio, you're going to talk about a quick correction we got with regard to the eastern side of the map that we barely talked about.
Hello! Yes. So, it was my understanding that there was an alliance that formed on later turns. But what I actually discovered after the comments said this is that this alliance had formed at the very start of the game. They just were kind of a mess for a few turns. This alliance is called the Holy Balkan Empire, or HBE for short, and it consists of the units that CaptainMeme just circled there.
Yeah.
The units, the countries. Um, Kiev's part of it was tenuous, and there was tons of concern about it because obviously there was coordination against Kiev at the start. The Kiev now in Moldova, but at this time of the game, I believe Kiev is part of the HBE and is just being scared and is tapping Wallachia for reasons because they're scared. But this is a major alliance that consists of many players. Their alliance structure is different from it's a democracy, or more of a republic, in that they will vote for a leader who will then make all of the decisions for the next year. And I think they came to that conclusion after this year. But that was how they acted later on, which made them a very useful alliance to negotiate with, because there was only one person that you needed to talk to, and then things would happen. It made them annoying to talk to, and that none of their agreements were binding post that one leader's turn. So if you tried to make a promise about the next 2 years, you would negotiate with someone, make a deal, and then the next year the leader comes in and then says, well, what have you done for me lately? Which was an annoying state of affairs.
Yep.
But yes, that was the HBE, and that's an alliance that we are going to be talking about. They are obviously going to be relevant because everything is relevant. And I wanted to make sure that correction was out there.
Right, so, yeah,
Yeah.
so the Holy Balkan Empire ends up being a pretty important factor in the game. We are not going to talk a ton about it for a little while, because it's, like, I think it becomes pretty relevant to Ezio relatively soon, but right now it wasn't a concern to either of us, and they were negotiating in Elm Chat, which meant that neither of us saw anything they were doing for the most part. Actually, were they negotiating in Elm Chat? I think they mostly used Elm Chat, right?
They used Elm Chat a lot, and they were so concerned with ensuring none of their members could stab the others that they did tons of relatively inefficient things constantly, which meant that they weren't making as much progress and stayed relatively contained in their area in the southeast.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
like
and
you noticed, Croatia doesn't have any units.
yeah. So, an important thing about this, right, is I think at this point the Holy Balkan Empire is specifically this area. But it does expand later on to include quite a bit more than just this area, despite the fact that these players don't immediately get much bigger. But we'll get to that when we get to it. So basically, at the end of the last episode, we just moved on to these moves, right? And I had talked a fair bit about the fact that I needed to get out to English Channel. So my moves here were relatively locked in. I think we already described them. But Ezio's moves up here, I don't think we talked about, right? So Ezio, do you want to cover what's going on up here in Scandinavia?
Yes, I would be happy to talk about what's going on up here in Scandinavia. So for some context, remember, I had ended up in Helsingfors, which may or may not have been a stab. And as a result of this, we had determined that I needed to give up at least that center to my fellow Alliance members because I couldn't be seen to grow from that move directly. So I agreed to back out of Helsingfors and let let Umia walk in to Helsingfors.
You can call them
Um,
Finland. I think we've called
you'll
them
see
Finland
why
enough.
I've called them Finland enough. You'll see now why I call them Finland because they end up in Helsingfors, which is essentially all of Finland, and they rename shortly. But this is part of the negotiations is I agree to give them this center. Um, Arkhangelsk, you'll notice, moves into Kola from Arkhangelsk. This is a move that they made to be safe and ensure that even if I were to go for a stab, and if I were to do something like support Stockholm into Umia, there would be enough hostile troops nearby that I would not be able to make a gain from this stab. Tactically, you can see if I had supported Stockholm into Umia, for example, I would go at best neutral in that Umia would retreat to Jämtland, Jämtland would tap Umia, and then Kola would probably coordinate with Narva and would support Narva into Helsingfors, or perhaps be supported into Helsingfors. Unclear. Either way, I'd be losing a center, and my stab would be impotent. So this was a safety move made on behalf of Arkhangelsk. However, it prevents Arkhangelsk from moving into Vologda,
This one here.
however you pronounce that one, um, and from coordinating with Novgorod against Moscow. Um, a trend you'll notice throughout this game is Arkhangelsk makes moves to stunt their own growth to potentially get a center off of me. Um, in this case, that doesn't happen, and Finland is the one in Helsingfors. I moved into Gulf of Finland instead of Baltic Sea. This is because I expect my next center to be Narva. As we have mentioned, Narva has been snarky, has been saying many bad things about the Vikings, and has never officially been a part of the Vikings. Narva also felt incredibly betrayed and angry that Helsingfors is dead, that I killed Helsingfors, um, and
Understandably, to be honest.
was was not going to work with us from here on out, and was also chirping at Finland at Umia. And so this was one of the many times that Finland and I communicated in Elm Hall, hoping other people wouldn't notice. And so Umia messaged me saying, "Hey, Ezio, I think I can see how you can stay on two centers this phase." Um, to which, and this was like 2 minutes after Narva said something else about how they can't trust us anymore and they can't work with us. And so I picked up what he was putting down. Um, so I moved into Gulf of Finland. I was saying I am either going to support Helsingfors into Narva, or I am going to ask Finland to support me into Narva with their unit in Helsingfors. Um, Either one works for me. I was pushing to have Umia move into Narva because then their army gets further south, and then Gulf of Finland. I was expecting negotiations to go south with the Commonwealth because as I mentioned in the last phase, or maybe in the last builds, the Commonwealth was pushing for Prussia to build a fleet, but Prussia built an army instead, which is indicating that relationships are going south a little bit. I wasn't expecting things to go quite this poorly. And we'll talk about that in and let's talk about that right now. Unless you have
Good
anything you want to
time.
talk about, Captain Meme.
I do have some stuff, but I'll. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to mention from the comments of the last video as well. We had the great prophet themselves, Bumble, show up. It was a great honor to receive your comment. Praise Bumble. So Bumble, as you'll know from the initial video, was Helsingfors. They were the leader of that religion, right? They posted saying, the religion was a bit of a meme, but they didn't actually cause any of the stuff that we said they caused on the previous phase. Specifically, Narva becoming the Pope, right? And I got some correction on this in the Discord. Edinburgh mentioned that they basically pushed for the idea of a new Pope to follow the martyr of Helsingfors, and then there was a Bumble election, which any Bumble could vote in, between Edinburgh and Narva for who would be the next Pope of the Bumbles. And Narva ended up winning that vote by one vote. It was 5-4, so not all of the Bumbles voted in that, I think. But yeah, this is essentially why Narva became the new Bumble Pope. I don't think it had a massive impact outside of just affecting the conversations that were going on in the game, right? We had a lot of conversation around should Ezio... Basically, Ezio is forced to become a Bumble to repent for his crime of killing the Bumble Pope, the initial one, and then you immediately go after the next Bumble Pope, right? While having Bumble in your name. It was kind of hilarious.
Yes, this is when I renamed myself the Anti-Bumble. Um, I was planning to I was planning on setting myself up as a literal anti-Bumble Pope and was going to make a religion hunting down the Bumbles. Um, but I decided against that. I think that was a bridge too far. I also considered trying to be a Bumble Pope and making a big push for myself to say we're going to change the Bumble religion to be one of growth and of strength, not merely survival and sitting around uselessly. And Bumbles would have a mandate from heaven to aid their other Bumbles in an expansion, and that Bumbleism transcends alliances and is the biggest thing. But I also didn't make that push because I was pretty content with the Vikings and didn't want to shake things up anymore.
Also, I think it was
Um,
the entirety of the anti-Bumbles were you, Finland, and me, I think, at that point, because I'd also renamed myself to being ex-Bumble because the original Bumble had basically told Keel to kill me at some point. But yeah, I was pretty happy to see you rename yourself to Anti-Bumble. I think that happens actually on the phase after this one, after you move into Gulf of Finland, right? So once your unit is
yeah,
there,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
very
yeah.
clear
Oh,
that Narva is.
I don't rename myself until after I'm already in position, and I might not rename myself until after I actually take Narva, because that's like you don't want to. It's not impossible, right? Kola could tap Helsingfors here because Archangelsk is in Kola, and if Helsingfors supports me into Narva, then that goes kaput. Um, so yes, this is what I'm hoping to have happen with Narva, but Wilno ends up in Courland. Um, and this is because the Commonwealth is pissed off at Prussia, King of Prussia, the player, and feels that he is double dealing. Um, and by being part of both the Commonwealth and the Vikings, they feel that he is therefore not a true Commonwealth member and therefore must be eliminated and cut from their alliance immediately. Um, this causes bad blood between the Commonwealth and the Vikings. And immediately, we being me and Umia start threatening all sorts of stuff to the Commonwealth, um, in order to try to keep King of Prussia alive, because obviously we want him to stick around. And so this is yet another very tense phase of negotiation with people who are close to me, trying to keep things alive and happy. And the Commonwealth is scared of the Vikings still because obviously I have the Baltic Sea controlled, and so they um are worried about what happens if they go into a full-out war. So they don't really want a war, but also they can't stand us. And it turns out their issues with us are like they are more pissed at us and at Poland than they are afraid of us, or Prussia, not Poland, than they are afraid of us. So they don't back down or anything, and so we just yeah, so it just doesn't work out at all. And so as a result, Finland and I for this phase are like, hey, we're gonna have to go attack the Commonwealth. I really, as a result, really want Umia to be the one to take Helsingfors because if you see right, if Finland takes Narva from Helsingfors, then next phase we can move into Livonia, Gulf of Riga, and Novgorod could move into Smolensk or Kursk, and we could then have a whole front set up against the Commonwealth. Um, but Umia was more worried about reducing the checkerboard pattern, because having our centers go Stockholm, Umia, as far as who controls what, would be awkward and annoying, and so it's cleaner to just have me in Narva. And so that ended up being more important than the potential attack against the Commonwealth.
I also think
So
that, like, it's kind of understandable from the Finland perspective, right, from the Umia perspective, to say, look, Ezio has fleets, they're going to be sticking around here, right? I have armies, they're going to be pushed off the front line. So I would really prefer to have my centers kind of out of the way so that if Ezio is going to come back and stab me, he at least has to telegraph that he's doing it by moving a bit of a distance, right? Um,
I think that's what he thought, but I actually think Narva's better for that. Because Helsingfors borders the Baltic Sea, I have a great excuse to be in position to stab for Helsingfors, the center, forever. Because Baltic Sea is always a place I have an excuse to be in. If I'm trying to stab to conquer Riga, I have a much harder time saying, why am I in the Gulf of Riga or the Gulf of Finland if not trying to attack Finland? Or whatever, Umia, Helsingfors, right? Like that, right?
yeah,
Um,
that makes sense, I guess.
so so I think Narva is actually a more defensive location for an army player because Gulf of Finland and Gulf of Riga suck compared to the Baltic Sea. So I was also pretty okay with Finland, with Umia taking Helsingfors because at this point in the game, I am expecting to stab at some point. I'm not sure when it's going to happen, but I have a feeling with these positions, I'm going to build in Stockholm at some point with the fleet in the Baltic Sea, and I'm just going to take Umia and Helsingfors at some point. Um, that's that's a position I expect to be in. So I'm pretty okay with this to happen. But by doing it like this, we're going to get less gains off the Commonwealth, and so it's worse, except I'm going to be in better position to stab. So, yes.
Yeah.
Um, so that's negotiations between Vikings and the Commonwealth. But King of Prussia himself at some point manages to secure some agreement with um, Bremen, the player who is currently in Brandenburg. And this relationship that they have means that they're able to secure something tactically. I forget exactly what tactics everyone's goes for around here. I think it's supporting Gdansk into Krakow. And then Prussia taps Warsaw, and that helps keep King of Prussia alive. But we'll see. We'll see what moves actually happen. Um,
We
great.
can talk about that more on the clean map, right? Or during the move reveal, I guess. For this
Yeah.
next one, there are a few other moves I want to talk about if you're done with the general Viking situation. But I don't know if you want to
Um,
talk about what's going on here.
yeah, so I made a move that I think surprised a lot of people when I moved into Scania from Stockholm instead of moving into the Baltic Sea. Um, so this move was like two or threefold. So first of all, I noticed that Gothenburg was going to be vacant, because I could tell Gothenburg and Oslo what to do. So I had Bergen moving into the North Sea, and Jutland was supporting Bergen into the North Sea. So nothing's going to be next to Gothenburg. And Oslo's moving into Bergen instead of Skagerrak. So if I want to take Gothenburg, I can. And that's always a nice thing to have. I like giving myself the ability to take a dot, if I so see it. The other one was I saw Copenhagen's neutrality. And I was not convinced that Copenhagen was going to continue to be neutral. Um, I thought there was a good chance that Copenhagen was going to make an aggressive move against me by moving into Scania. I remember Copenhagen at this point was talking to people, hey, can I just go into Scania and take Stockholm as punishment for his sins? Um, and I thought there was a reasonable chance that Copenhagen would move into Scania. And so if they did that, I would be happy to bounce. Furthermore, Scania borders Skagerrak, and Skagerrak is a wonderful place to be. Oh my God, it borders four centers, right? Copenhagen, Gothenburg, Bergen, and Oslo. It's got lots of retreats. It can flow into the North Sea as well. It's such a good province in this. I love Skagerrak here. It doesn't even have the problem that Skagerrak has in the real game because it has tons of retreat options available with that like Bohuslan center. Like, it's just such a good place. I was really happy to be in Skagerrak, and if I could sit in Skagerrak the entire game, I'd love to do that. Like the Skagerrak and the Baltic Sea were the two sea provinces that I was like mentally hoping if these are mine and only mine, I'm gonna be in great shape. There's like 8 dots or whatever that border just these two. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, right. So like if I just have all 8 of those dots, I win. So that's great. Obviously we'll get there later. So I'm happy to move to the Skagerrak if I end up in Scania. So let's move to Scania. Also, as of going into this phase, are we theoretically were allied with the Commonwealth, and so I didn't need to be in the Baltic Sea because, from my perspective, we've already secured all this stuff. The only place we haven't secured is Brandenburg, and we can get there later. Like, that's fine. I can move into the Sound and assist with this conquest. And then also help with Rostock. So it's good to be there. Whereas Baltic Sea isn't that necessary unless we're fighting the Commonwealth, and I didn't expect them to attack us like this. Straight up. So that's why I moved into Scania.
Right, so
Okay.
yeah,
Yes.
that makes sense.
All right. Captain Meme, what's going on with you?
All right,
Slash, what do you want to talk about?
yeah, there are a few things to talk about in terms of moves. First thing I wanted to look at is the wheel over here. You will see a lot of people moving into each other's centers, right? Trieste moves to Venice, Bavaria moves to Freiburg, Stuttgart moves to Nuremberg. Looking at this, I was fairly convinced someone was going to stab here, right? Because it's just such a good opportunity with everyone else moving away. These aren't stabs. I need to, like, say that and reiterate that. These are not stabs. These were all agreed with people, but people saying, hey, I'm gonna go here and then move out, like, past it. And stuff like Bavaria moving into Freiburg, and then I don't know where their eventual goal was here. Like, were they going into Switzerland and Switzerland going down to Milan or something? I don't remember. But they had general agreements to move past these centers. And I was looking at this, I'm just like, someone is gonna stay there, right? If everyone is agreeing to move away from the wheel, then it's the perfect opportunity to just stand in a center, get a build, right? Say Bavaria stands in Freiburg, gets a build in Innsbruck, and then you have 2 units in an area that's really SC dense that no one else is gonna be in. You can just stab everyone. And I was just like, I was really hoping for this to happen, right? But at the same time, it's kind of too late. It's not going to happen in spring. People aren't going to stab in the spring because then you recall all the enemy units, right, during the fall phase. So you'll notice that things are not going very well for me over here. They are invading me. And by the time that stab will happen, I'll probably be dead. So it's unfortunately a bit too late. I was trying to kind of sound the alarm bells and tell people, look at what is going on in the wheel here. Someone is going to stab. You shouldn't be attacking me. But
It does
that
look like a good step.
that logic also doesn't exactly work, right? Because the people who are attacking me don't care if someone in the wheel stabs. These are basically like separate people because this alliance is just so big. None of the internal wheel members are actually the ones who are supporting people into my centers. So I think even if, say, Luxembourg thought that a stab was going to happen here, they would still just take Ghent because it's a dot. They get another build out of it, right? And then they're pretty happy. But I was just basically trying to throw as much as I possibly could at getting people to get off my back. It was not working very well. Another angle I took was, hey, the wheel was having these like nasty interactions with the Vikings at the time, basically saying, hey, the Vikings are going to be this massive threat, which obviously they are, right? Your alliance is doing really well. And the wheel solution to this at this time was basically, hey, we'll take Benelux, right? Well, we'll take Benny, we'll take Ghent, Amsterdam, Utrecht, and then we'll build some fleets and send them off after the Vikings. I was like, that is utterly ridiculous. How are you going to build fleets there, right? You have to take the center, then back out of the center and leave it open when you have not aligned yourself with anyone who has fleets to protect that center, except for Kiel here, right? Technically, I think Bremen was on board with the wheel at this point, but they also don't like Kiel very much and had just walked in to Kiel's dot. So, yeah, I was kind of saying, hey, none of this makes any sense. If you really want to go against the Vikings, just align yourself with the people who already have fleets, right? We're not only do we already have fleets, we're moving them out into like Southern Bight and Wadden. Admittedly, I'm the person least likely to stay alive by this argument because mine is not very useful against the Vikings. But we're mobilized already. If you just leave our fleets on the board, we can help you. And this was a very, very long and I was gonna say nuanced debate, but like it was just a long debate. Really, there were a lot of people who really didn't want to stick with us. Specifically, like Freiburg. I think Nuremberg was also pretty like we need to kill Benny. We've committed already. That's basically the only direction we've committed in. So we will absolutely murder them. And Freiburg was like shouting from the rooftops saying, Ghent is not trustworthy, he's just doing this so that he can attack us later. Which, honestly...
It's also worth noting that you're the only direction the wheel can profitably expand.
I don't know that that's true. I think they could go in other directions. The the problem is that they've just aligned themselves with too many people, right?
What other direction could the wheel go?
I mean, they can try and get into these. Well, okay, so this is the problem, right? They've aligned themselves with too many people. They could try and go to Bremen and Brandenburg. They could try and go to
Yeah,
Commonwealth.
Bremen and Brandenburg notably are already in the wheel.
Yep. They could try and go to Commonwealth. Commonwealth is a decent option for them, I suppose. They were actively planning to kill Genoa, which is why this is happening here with France going into Savoy, well, with Bordeaux going into Savoy, and with Rome going into Tuscany. They're collaborating against Genoa. This isn't exactly wheel business.
Sure.
Rome is part of the wheel. The Sardinia, I think, is not, so it's like Italian-French cooperation. But they've got this dot to expand into. But I think they're actually aligned with Sarajevo as well at this point, so... yeah... it does feel like there's nowhere for them to go.
And if they tried to attack the Commonwealth, I don't think they were going to crack Krakow. I think if the Commonwealth sees wheel members in Silesia and Podolia, they don't try to eliminate King of Prussia. They just coordinate and say, hey, all right, it's okay, King of Prussia, we don't like that. Like, hey, great, you built an army. You can help support us in Krakow and stuff. And Warsaw. So I suspect if they tried to push into Commonwealth, they would find severe resistance there. And then trying to push into Sarajevo, they could move Trieste into Croatia and Galicia into Banat. But then I suspect they would see similar support of Sarajevo as well. So
Yeah.
I don't think they could actually take any centers from anyone except you guys, and so let the West attack. This is an argument actually that Salt made early on in the game when arguing against the wheel trying to spin, essentially saying we have a lot of members, we can push everywhere, and we might make progress on any of these sides. And in this position, maybe the war on four fronts was actually a viable strategy, unlike an armed diplomacy, because maybe you'll make progress somewhere. But at this point, they really can't push east at all, so I think it makes a lot of sense for them to kill you.
I mean, even in that case, though, I think it it's more that it makes sense for someone to stab, right?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
Oh God,
yeah.
yeah. For Prague and Bavaria, like, or Innsbruck, right? Like, what are they ever gonna do, right?
They're not
Like, they're
even the
never gonna
ones
get any
making gains
centers.
over here, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, Bavaria and Prague and Freiburg and Trieste, like all these people, like I think Trieste has the best stab here because Trieste is safe. So if Trieste stabs, they just go +1 guaranteed. Um, and then if Freiburg stabs, it's a little scary, but like I think they negotiated Bavaria to walk out of Freiburg.
Yes.
So like, hey, maybe you're fine, maybe you just take it. And then for Prague, like yeah, you're probably like Nuremberg probably isn't walking into Saxony. I don't know exactly what deals they negotiated for the fall here, but like just dotting your neighbors here makes a ton of sense. So I was expecting a stab here too.
Yeah, yeah. I was making that argument quite a bit, right? I was basically saying, hey, you know, if Benny is your only expansion route, which I believe was also the argument that Freiburg was making, that, you know, we have to kill them because that's the only way we can go. Like, where do you go beyond that? There's nowhere to go beyond that. So you're going to end up killing each other. Just kill each other now instead of murdering me. But yeah, that angle didn't work very well. At some point, I just got kind of frustrated with the fact that none of my negotiations there were working at all, and I just decided to troll a little bit. So there's a whole negotiation that happened here where at the start of every sentence I wrote, I okay, well, hang on. I've set that up in the wrong way. Basically, I encoded a message by taking the first letter of every sentence that I wrote through the entire negotiation, which ended up being "never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down." And then I told them later, "Hey, there's a secret message in my like negotiations. You should go and find it." And they did go and find it, and then everyone found it kind of hilarious. And I think it actually bought me a little bit of goodwill, but it didn't help at all. It was just me messing around. But I do need to mention it because it actually does come in super relevant later. The very last sentence that I wrote, I couldn't think of anything beginning with N to write there, so I just said something like Nostradamus says hello, to point to the fact that there was a secret message. And it should be noted, I didn't realize this at the time. Encrypted messages were banned, so I was breaking the rules by doing this, but I didn't realize, and that is my defense against that. But
And also the encrypted message was a Rickroll, and Rickroll lets you break a lot of rules.
yes, yeah, yeah. I do actually, I think it's obviously not a strategy per se to do something like that, but it does. Just being funny in a situation where you're going to die is often quite a good way to get out of dying. Like, winning a little bit of goodwill from people just by making them laugh is a good way to get people to ally with you when you're in a pretty desperate situation. So I think it kind of did work on that front. I remember especially Bordeaux loved it, which, as you'll notice, may come in handy in a second because I am going to be adjacent to Bordeaux going into the next phase. I do want to move on to the clean map. There was one thing that I wanted to mention before that, which is, what the hell is going on here? God damn England. I think I vaguely remember that Oxford was now panicked about the fact that London was on 2 supply centres instead of 1, and so offered Edinburgh support into Plymouth. And then just didn't give it and went to try and attack Edinburgh instead. But because they'd offered that support, London was like, what? And attacked them, so everything ends up rotating here. And Oxford, notably, is now within range of just going for Edinburgh. It's not for free, because Bergen is still adjacent to it. Like, Bergen is now adjacent to it in the North Sea, so could bounce. And I think that ends up being a big topic of conversation on the next turn. But, like, this is just the epitome of British madness that's going on here. Yeah. It sums up what was going on in Britain quite well. Alright, so was there anything else you want to talk about on the moves here, or should I move to the clean map?
I think we can move to the clean map, and we can start talking about what we're going to do for the next turn.
Yeah, alright. Let's go clean map then.
Right.
Oh, wait, that's the retreat phase. Okay, this is the clean map. So, I'll start in my corner of the world. Because, as you'll note now, we have, my alliance is all in the sea. We have English Channel, we have Southern Bight, and we have Wadden Sea. These are the Hoogers, all fleeing their homeland, basically. Ghent is about to support Helsinki Utrecht, so there's nothing we can really do about that. We could try and attack Amsterdam, but if we coordinate something like that, like, I can get Amsterdam back into Amsterdam, for example, if I tap Ghent and then they support back in. If we can coordinate something like that, they can see that we're coordinating it, right? Yes, we would probably kill Salt, which is a good objective to have, but it would kill 2 of us in the process, right? And Amsterdam then is back here between 2 enemy units. It's just not very useful. Whereas if we basically scatter and try and just get into whatever centers we can, then at least we're surviving, and at least we've, like, escaped the invaders. So that becomes the plan at this point. Amsterdam was really hoping I would support them into London, after I was supported into the English Channel. But the moment I got into English Channel, I was just like, no, I'm not doing that. I need to focus on my own survival. I'm really sorry about this. So Amsterdam was a little bit screwed there. But then Amsterdam had a bit of a lucky break in that Edinburgh said, hey, I'd be willing to support you into London. And this came about because London initially said to me, hey, you're an English Channel, do you want support into Plymouth to deal with Edinburgh? Because this is Chaos England, they're all fighting each other, right? And Edinburgh had seen that and basically went, oh, how do I prevent this from happening? Well, the easy way to prevent this from happening is just to have Amsterdam tap London, then Ghent can't go for this attack, right? And so Edinburgh offers this support. I had said yes to London's initial offer, because I'm basically looking for anything. But once I see that Amsterdam is going to go to London, I'm like, okay, that's not an option I can take anymore. I have to focus on the only other centre that is within my grasp, which is Nantes. So I then look to Nantes, and Bordeaux immediately offers to support me in, which is just brilliant, of course. I will obviously say yes to that every single time. And a big part of this is because Nantes had declared themselves independent, right? So Paris and Bordeaux are forming like this French alliance, and they had, I think, offered membership to Nantes earlier on in the game, but Nantes had been very much, I know I'm going to be an independent nation. I'll be friendly with you, but I'm not going to join any alliances. And that was obviously less appealing to Bordeaux than working with someone who was actively saying, I'll be in an alliance with you. Now, Bordeaux did make some conditions on this. Initially, they'd asked me, hey, you're an English Channel, you're clearly going to die, can you support me into Nantes as your final move? And I said, well, no, I would like to survive. So I'm not going to do that. But I'd be happy to basically be vassalized to you if you if you support me in the other way, right? I'll work with you however you want me to. And then Sardinia came along and said, hey, I can broker some kind of agreement for this. How about you get supported into Nantes on this turn, but you agree to give Bordeaux Nantes on the next turn? I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. But I didn't say that because Bordeaux was like, oh yeah, Sardinia, that's a great idea. How about we do that? And I just want this support at this point, right? I want to survive. So I basically say, okay, yeah, sure. You know what? You can have Nantes immediately after. It's completely fine. Just please support me in on this turn. And so they offer that support, and it's looking alright for me. The one person it's not looking alright for is Utrecht. Poor old Utrecht. He's clearly not getting back into their homeland, right? Both of their allies are targeting centers in this direction, so they're kind of on their own over here. I think they didn't even have like good relations with the Vikings or anything. They are literally just eyeing up centers, Kiel and Bremen, and going, can I possibly slip into one of these? Is it even possible? And they're gonna have to make a bit of a guess and hope, I think is what happened over there. Although I can't precisely remember what their negotiations were.
Utrecht wasn't negotiating at this point.
Yeah,
We couldn't say anything because we couldn't offer, like, we could not agree to support Utrecht into Kiel because that would be war. And right now, with the Commonwealth stabbing Prussia, we couldn't afford to piss that off because we wanted the option to work with the wheel against the Commonwealth to just kick him out and to keep Prussia alive because we're still showing loyalty to our members.
yeah. So poor Utrecht is just kind of on their own. And even if they manage to get into a DOS over here, they're still on their own because all their allies have gone this way. It's pretty notable. We were being quite upbeat, like we were still sending weehoog messages to one another and like the emoji and whatnot, but I think we were all kind of down at the result of what had happened here. And the primary person that we all blamed for it, despite the fact that Salt had been like the main instigator of all of this, right? Salt is now in Amsterdam. The primary person we all blamed for it was Luxembourg, because even though I think it's kind of my fault that it ended up going this way in the way I reacted to Luxembourg's statement that they were going to leave the alliance, right? The fact that I tried to then invite Dijon into the alliance and get Luxembourg killed. The fact that they left the alliance in the first place and basically said, hey, you know, now that you've built fleets, now that you can't help me, you know, now that you've made these commitments with your builds to this alliance, I'm gonna leave it and screw you all. That was very much how it felt. So our anger in this moment is very much directed towards Luxembourg. Now, we're not gonna take any action on that, we can't really, right? We're all focused on our own survival, but it may come in a little bit later. That's pretty much all I have to say on my sort of side of things. I was looking at, like, this area a little bit, but I was mainly focused on just, like, how am I gonna live? And Nantes was the option for that. What was going on in your area of the world?
Cool. So, obviously, we've been talking about the Commonwealth Vikings slash Prussia negotiations a lot, and the Narva. So, we settle on um, Umia supporting me into Narva from Gulf of Finland, and Finland, Umia doesn't want to go up to 3 on this turn. So, Umia agrees to give Novgorod to Arkhangelsk and is playing coy about where exactly Novgorod will go. Um, they keep this close to their chest. And unlike most of the Vikings, whom I tell exactly what they need to do every move, I don't do that with Finland, with Umia, because I trust them a lot, and I know that they uh, telling people what to do means other people can react appropriately, and so there's more value in letting them make their own moves. And so I don't tell Finland what to do, and I have a good sense of what's happening. Same thing with King of Prussia, actually. In a tactical fight like this, you want to keep your moves close to your chest so you can read and counter and not be locked into anything. So that's in the Eastern Vikings. The Western Vikings and Great Britain. So, obviously, things are chaotic once again. So the Vikings' main priority is killing Ireland. Ireland stabbed and killed Reykjavik after leaving and left the Viking alliance as a result and showed no remorse for their sins. So we want help. Who's the most useful person to help us eliminate Ireland? Well, Edinburgh. Edinburgh is the answer. Because Ghent and the English channel CaptainMeme would die if they try to support us into Rockall Rise. But Edinburgh, after ending up in Plymouth, Plymouth is safe, guaranteed. And so Plymouth is fine. Furthermore, in fall of the first year, Reykjavik sacrificed themselves to bounce Edinburgh. Um, there was the Bergen was in the North Sea, and Edinburgh wanted to take Plymouth by working with Ireland. The agreement was that Ireland would support Edinburgh into Plymouth from Wales using their fleet that was in Rockall. So Edinburgh should have taken Plymouth in the fall of last year, but Ireland stabbed them and then didn't. And then Reykjavik and the Vikings worked with Edinburgh last year to bounce in Edinburgh to keep Edinburgh safe, and so that Edinburgh should have been on 2 if Ireland didn't stab. Instead, Ireland stabbed. And so, from my perspective and the other Vikings, Edinburgh was also stabbed by Ireland and should happily just work with us against Ireland. Like, Edinburgh is safe. But Edinburgh wants the North Sea to tap Eddie because they see this Oxford army in York and says, hey, they're going to take Edinburgh, and I don't want them to do that, so I need you guys to do more to help us, to help me again, and I need you guys to tap Edinburgh. What we wanted to do with the North Sea was either move it into Iceland Basin or support Amsterdam into London. Probably move into Iceland Basin. And so this is the thing, because if we move North Sea into Iceland Basin and Plymouth supports Greenland Sea into Rockall Rise, Ireland can't defend everything, and their position is going to collapse sooner rather than later. And Edinburgh agrees to this after much chagrin. Edinburgh's like, no, I really want you guys to cover Edinburgh. And we're like, dude, we've already covered Edinburgh last year and tried to bounce it. We're not going to do that here. And Edinburgh's like, yeah, and then agreed eventually. Then, in Great Britain fashion, with 2 minutes left in the phase, tells Ireland, hey, Ireland, I think support yourself in the Rockall. I think support yourself in the Rockall is I think what they say. And then it's like, okay, cool. So that's what they say 5 minutes before the phase.
Yep.
Yep.
I should
all
note
right.
on the Britain front, I can't remember why, but like Oxford agreed to tap Oxford, like when talking to Edinburgh and Amsterdam. I think because they knew that North Sea was going to bounce Edinburgh, or they suspected that it was going to bounce Edinburgh and they were dying anyway. Something like that.
Oh, they were just lying, dude.
Yes. Yeah.
They were agreeing to tap Oxford because if they tapped Oxford, then North Sea could support Amsterdam into London, and then York wouldn't be tapping Oxford, they'd be getting North Sea to hold, and they would go into Eddie.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that makes sense. But whatever the case, I know Amsterdam thought they were going to tap Oxford here, which is... it's gonna be relevant. But yeah, Britain is what Britain is. They do a lot of things at the last minute in these in these phases. Like this will be a running theme. So yeah, that is the Western Vikings, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about before we move on to the moves themselves?
Uh,
There's so much here. Uh,
I think we can go see the moves. The HBE is chugging along. I think um Constantinople at this point really starts to take over in the leadership role and starts telling other people things to do. But that might be next year.
I did realize I found a move here very weird on the last phase, which was Athens to Albania. This seems to
Oh,
serve
yeah.
no purpose whatsoever. I don't know why they were supported in here. I'd be interested if Athens or Sarajevo or anyone around them are reading these comments or watching this video. Can you tell us what this was about? Because I'm very curious. But you'll see
Yeah.
here, if we move on to moves, it does just go back again. And they do some kind of very weird shuffle over here with all the units, right? Kiev ends up supporting Constantinople into Jeddah. Wallachia moves into Moldavia, which takes Kiev's other center, so they all end up going even. Sarajevo goes into Constantinople, and so is the only one to get the build over here, right? And Jeddah does this random invalid move to a province that doesn't exist on this map. It's in the normal Imperial Diplomacy map, and they just hadn't removed the artifact over here. And gets killed in the process. And at the same time, Astrakhan stabs Dagestan to become a 3-center power in the corner, which seems incredibly strong to me, right? This is just,
Yep.
like, such a good position. Absolutely beautiful, and positioned to take Georgia on the next turn now, because Circassia and Dagestan are both adjacent to it, and there's nothing to stop them. They need an Aleppo support, and Aleppo is being attacked by Cairo and Smyrna. So yeah, fun times in the East. I hope that's been enough of a focus for you on what's going on over there, because that is basically all the vision I had of it. I was on the far side of the map, of course. I knew there was lots of stuff going on here. I knew it was happening in Elm. I did not want to touch Elm with a 10-foot pole. This is, yeah. So moves-wise, do you want to talk about what's going on?
Southwest. If we're talking about the rest of the map, let's go southwest.
Okay, yes. So, importantly, so I wasn't paying huge amounts of attention to what was going on at this point, right? In Spain, primarily because they were also using Elm Hall, and Elm Hall was too difficult to follow. It was really annoyingly hard. I know that Berbers and Tunis were working together, but were kind of independent from all the other major alliances. So you see that Berbers actually saves Tunis on this turn from a joint Spanish-Moroccan attack. And that they are, like, basically a buffer state against a huge number of nations here right now. But importantly, this move happens down in the southwest. Rabat to Tangier, this was not agreed. And you note that Rabat is still supporting Tangier and Porto. They're giving them a center, right? They're keeping them alive. These three are the Moroccan alliance, Marrakesh, Rabat, and Tangier, and they now own the entirety of Portugal. But at the same time, Rabat has stabbed for the extra dot. And a lot of negotiation happens as a result of this. This bit I was now following after this phase, because I'm now in Nantes. It's now directly relevant to me, right? What is going on in this area? But we'll...
Azores as well is coordinating with them,
Yes.
with Marrakesh and Rabat.
Yeah, so the exact alliance structure here is a little bit muddled, right? When I got into Nantes, I then said, hey, well, yeah, which you can note here, I did get into Nantes and survive. I said to Spain, or, well, to Madrid specifically, hey, can you make me a list of the alliances that are happening down here? Because I have no idea. And they drew me a Venn diagram between themselves, like, I think they had themselves Gibraltar and Baleares in one group, and then they had, God, I don't actually remember, but I know that they grouped Azores with the Moroccan alliance.
Yep.
So, Azores in Iberian Current is a little bit dangerous here because Madrid has been outright saying, hey, we need to go for France. We need to attack this front here, which you'll note they are moving towards now. So it's a little bit worrying with Azores adjacent to me and them working with this alliance that is coming for France. But we'll get into that more a little bit later. Important thing for me right now is that I survive. Right, I get into Nantes. I was a little bit worried about Paris tapping Bordeaux here, because Paris is part of the wheel, they just supported Luxembourg against me. But the fact that I built up a bit of a rapport with Paris previously by basically saying, hey, you know, save yourself, make sure that you're in a good position when we'd had that whole Luxembourg altercation earlier on, it really paid dividends here. Like, Paris was perfectly happy to just say, yeah, Nantes, yeah, Ghent is fine. You know, they're away from the wheel now. They're kind of under my protection. You know that they're moving to Normandy. That is not an anti-me move. We'll get to exactly why that happened in a bit. But the important thing is they didn't tap Bordeaux, so I survived this. Unfortunately, Amsterdam does not survive this. Both of the people who had agreed to help them, Oxford agreed to tap Oxford, and Edinburgh agreed to support them into London. Both of them betray them on this turn, and poor Amsterdam dies to the horrible salt. the enemy of all. But Utrecht survives somehow, without coordinating with anyone. Just a random guess on here. Basically, Utrecht made it kind of obvious they were going for one of Kiel or Bremen. Bremen goes, okay, well, I guess I'll go back to Bremen and cover that just in case they're going there, right? It also protects me against a Strasbourg stab or a Saxony stab. And Utrecht guesses correctly and just goes into Kiel. And your Vikings aren't stopping that, so he does somehow survive this. Absolutely
Yeah, so what
incredible.
happened here is that Salt organized with Bremen and Rostock and told Bremen to walk into Kiel in the spring, but in the fall, he told Kiel to move back into Bremen and told Rostock to move into Kiel.
Oh, I see.
Rostock didn't do that.
Okay, I missed that completely in when I was watching. I guess I wasn't looking that closely at those negotiations. Um,
Yes.
Good on
And as a
Rostock.
result, Utrecht just walks right in.
Yep, manages to get Kiel, and then the Salt is obviously still alive, but he's still on one dot here in Amsterdam. And unfortunately, the entirety of the lowlands is now in the evil stranglehold of the wheel. Speaking of which, this is the most important move that happens in the game. At least from my perspective. Venice was supposed to go to Milan here, right? Getting supported out by Switzerland. You'll know we were saying a lot of, it really makes sense for someone in the wheel to stab here, right? They don't really have any other expansion options. And you pointed out specifically it makes sense for Trieste to stab because they can't get stabbed this turn. They're always going to gain a dot, right? So they go for Innsbruck. They do it. They actually do stab the wheel and they take the second dot here and they get prepared for the extra build. That leads to a lot more negotiation that I'll go over in a second. But first we should look at the Viking area and what happened here. And that is
Yes.
back to you.
So, remember when I said that Edinburgh told Ireland to support themselves into Iceland Basin? Sorry, no, they told them, when I said they should support themselves into Rockall, they didn't say that. They said they should support themselves into Iceland Basin, like what happened here.
Mhm.
And so then Eddie in Plymouth decided to bounce us out of Rockall. Bounce us, I mean bounce, I think, Spitsbergen,
Yep.
out of Rockall, and thereby betraying us, who had worked with him in the past, and by working with Ireland, who had stabbed him last turn, and by not having any allies in Great Britain because Oxford just attacked them and Edinburgh just attacked Wessex or London, Wessex, and they renamed themselves to Wessex. So by stabbing us, they left themselves no allies and didn't let us make progress. But that's what they were hoping for. They stopped us from making progress. So, okay,
That's Britain.
that's Britain. That's the move. So, yeah, okay. This move got praised by other people in the game. I really don't understand what the end goal is with this move. Like, I don't understand. What do you think is, like, what?
Well, they're balancing power, right? They're stopping the Vikings from expanding.
Oh,
I think
Jesus Christ.
I think it's kind of important that you stop the Vikings expanding if you're in Great Britain, because Great Britain
No.
is so... like, it's in such a state of madness that they are just going to get run over if a coordinated
But
force
if
comes near
Edinburgh works with us, we capitalize on it.
them.
Like, Edinburgh's not gonna die, right? There are enough centers on England. Especially remember that our number one goal is to kill Ireland, right? That's our main priority here. We are happy to give centers to people on England. We're okay with that. It works. But it's okay.
But
Edinburgh stabbed here,
I think
and that's fine.
I think maybe the most important thing there is you said you outright refused to go to Edinburgh, right? To bounce and
Yeah.
do what Edinburgh was asking you to do. So maybe if you just agreed to do what Edinburgh was asking you to do, they'd build a fleet and help you on the next turn. But I don't
Yeah, but
see
Edinburgh,
that they have
we
great
asked Edinburgh
reason
to do something instead of taking Plymouth. We wanted Edinburgh to move into Irish Sea in the previous turn. And Edinburgh refused to do that as well. So it was like, okay, we saved you and kept you alive, and you weren't willing to work with us last turn. So you're now asking us to slow ourselves down again to give you a center here when North Sea could do a ton of very useful things in future promises which you've backed out on now twice. Question mark, question mark, question mark. No.
Yeah, I still think it's kind of reasonable.
Yeah,
I
because you
don't
love
think
never growing and you love making the strong players not do anything, even if it guarantees you never do anything all game.
No. I mean, this is not even from a balance of power perspective. I think I'd understand not wanting to work with the Vikings if they had just refused to do the thing. Like, why are they saying, hey, please help us, when they're unwilling to do, like, the smallest possible thing of just helping you get one build? Right?
You
'Cause
understand
the
that we
one build
just
is
saved him
important.
last turn, right?
Yeah, they did survive that, right? But
That
also...
we saved them last turn, right? We spent a unit to keep them alive, and then we asked them to do something in exchange, and they said no. And now they're saying, do another thing for me in exchange, and I might help you in the future.
Okay, so I kind of get it, but also, like, in their position, I would be a bit annoyed at you not being willing to bounce Edinburgh. I think
Yeah, and
that's
I'd be a bit
quite...
annoyed at you for me saving your life and you not being willing to do the thing that we asked you to do. So
My angle
I
would
don't think it's gonna happen.
my angle as Edinburgh would outright to be, hey, I'll only help you if you bounce Edinburgh for me, because then I'll have 2 units and I'll be able to, like, attack Ireland effectively. Which is
Yeah, but
what you
also
want.
would you have stabbed us the previous turn? Right? If we've just kept you
I
alive and you're on one center with no allies, right? Do you really think you're gonna just walk into Plymouth? No, I think you would have said, "Oh, actually, I want to work with the Vikings here, and I'll move into the Irish Sea and be okay, be able to
Yeah, that's
defend myself
probably
and
true.
support."
If I
It's
was
a
going
different
to
player.
Plymouth, I would probably say to you guys, no, I don't want to go into Irish Sea. Would be the important thing. Yeah. But I think I would have probably gone to Irish Sea in attempts to get your support, because the being able to walk into Plymouth was like an
Seems crazy.
extremely unlikely thing to work.
I agree. I
Uh,
suspect it would have happened, but it didn't happen here, and Edinburgh bounced, Rock All Rise. Okay, fine, whatever. Western Vikings, I'm not that invested. It doesn't really matter to me. Like,
you're in Skagerrak now, so
I
you are
ended up in the
technically a Western
Skagerrak,
Viking as
right?
well.
I got Narva, yeah, but I don't like care, right? About if Spitsbergen, like, I want them to be successful because it makes my claims about the Vikings being the best alliance on the board better, I guess. But it's really not that important to me. It's just like, what are you doing? Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
But
Eastern Vikings, right? Oh,
Eastern Vikings,
yeah.
or Central Eastern Vikings, sure. So I take Narva. I have killed another Bumble Pope. Wonderful.
Yep.
Excellent. Chalk number two.
That is two Bumble Popes in 2 years you have murdered.
It's
So-
really great. Also, Narva was just frustrating. And like, man, in a public press game, when someone's been calling for your death and you kill them instead, oh, that feels so good.
On the other hand, I do think Narva was proven right.
Okay, but I was also proven right because Narva was going to stab Helsingfors if I didn't organize the bounce, and Narva understood that I was going to bounce with Helsingfors. So
Fair
other
enough.
people did pick it up. So like, look, am I a stabby person who didn't like Narva? Yes. Can I work with people who I don't like? Also, yes. Can I work with you if you say, hey, I don't like this person and I'm only working with them because I'm under their thumb and I'm going to look for every opportunity to stab them and I'm going to try to coordinate against them with other alliances on the board? No, I can't work with that person. So you can, like, when I talked in the last game about Kolkis, who said, hey, I view you as an existential threat, and then I decided I had to kill Kolkis. Narva did the same thing this game, and I'm like, all right, I have to kill you, I guess. So
For viewers' reference, that is the Hellenic diplomacy video, if you're watching this at a time where it's not obvious what the last game was.
yeah, actually, it wasn't the last video. It wasn't even. We've tied a couple since then.
Yes.
Anyways, point is, in that game, right, it was the same exact situation that happened here. I felt so. I felt like my hands were tied, and it worked out. Okay. Meanwhile, Umiya moved Novgorod into Smolensk. That's a very useful province if we're at war with Wilno, who's in Wilno and Kiev. Um, it's not great. And King of Prussia did manage to negotiate with Bremen, Brandenburg to stay alive. And so they're going to be on two in Krakow, and Prussia is going to retreat into Gdansk. But here, Krakow sadly gets to retreat into Warsaw, so Krakow doesn't also get knocked off my hit list here.
I do remember this because people were saying this is like the new wheel. It's incredible because
Yes,
Gdansk gets into Krakow, right? Krakow retreats to Warsaw. Warsaw gets into Prussia, and Prussia retreats to Gdansk.
it
So it's the
is
second
a
coming and the
war
one that
wheel.
actually works, unlike the original wheel, which failed on the
Yes,
first.
through retreats and brutal warfare, rather than people singing Kumbaya. All right. Um, that's the and then Archangels obviously walks into Novgorod and is ready to build. Um, because the move to Kola again was the anti-stab measure. I didn't stab, so no need to be there. Could have walked into Uvia, notably. But Novgorod was already being given freely, so don't go for a stab. Everything's fine.
Yeah, I
Um,
do think it's a super interesting decision on Umiya's part to just go, hey, I'll stay at two centers here, I don't want the third one, right?
yeah, I think it was a really good call, and I very much agreed with it.
Yes, it definitely
I wouldn't want to go
decreases
to
the
three
threat
centers
level,
here.
right? And it makes sure that Archangelisk, who is in a really dangerous position to you here, to you both, basically, goes somewhere where they're now quite incentivized to just push this way instead of trying to stab for anything up here, right? So I really like that. I think that's worked out really well. And of course, they're now positioned against the Commonwealth, which
Yes.
is who you want to attack, right?
They're attacking us, right? Like,
Well,
they're
yeah.
just at war. They kicked out King of Prussia from the alliance. he's a Viking. They're attacking the Vikings. Like, simple as that. They're attacking us. We gotta get ready to fight them.
Hmm.
And the Central Vikings with Gothenburg and Copenhagen. Um, Copenhagen is still saying, I want to be neutral and not do anything ever. And their neutrality was the thing that I appreciated last year, and I no longer want them to be neutral. When I saw the plan that Salt proposed, I'm like, hey, can we just support ourselves into Kiel and then take it? Like, can we just do that? But like I couldn't say it in public because of the whole thing, and I wanted I thought actually Copenhagen should move into Rostock on this turn because the plan, right, was Rostock moves into Kiel. And so I thought Copenhagen should just walk into Rostock, but I obviously can't tell Copenhagen to do that. So I had to stay silent again, and I told Gothenburg, hey, just support Copenhagen with Jutland. Don't let anything crazy happen. Like, it's fine. Things will be okay. That spot's going to be useful. I promise. Don't worry about it. And I end up in Skagerrak. So, yes, good turn for me. I don't take Gothenburg, right? Look at this. Look at Ezio being next to a dot and not taking it, everybody. Look, it happens.
You clearly
All
didn't
right.
see the dot then. Um,
I saw the
yes.
dot. I talk about this dot in my void, and I talk about stabbing it like a lot. Um, I really think about taking this dot. But I'm like, I don't think I should take this dot. I remember in one of the live adjudications, Flare is like, look at Ezio being next to a guaranteed dot. I wonder if he'll take it. Um,
Yeah.
like,
I think you were reined in quite well by Umia being quite a good player, right? Because you're aware that he can probably rally people against you if you if you just stab for this. Narva is not in a defensible location, your extra dot here, so you are going to lose that if you stab right now. And even if you build Army Stockholm, like, Bergen can come back to defend Oslo, right? And if they get enough people to coordinate against you, I think that really doesn't go well for you. I'd assume
yeah.
that was your thought process. Um,
Yeah, one of the things that I haven't mentioned is that Gothenburg was a bumble. And so while I was contemplating going for my whole anti-Bumble thing, Copenhagen was also a Bumble. I was like, I could kill Narva and Gothenburg here, kill two of the Bumbles, and then go +1, build in Stockholm, and try to kill Copenhagen next year and be like uber Bumble killing, but no, I didn't.
that at least gives a decent narrative for what was essentially just a greedy stab, right?
Yep.
Yeah. But no, I think it was a good play for you not to go for it. I think that would have been problematic for you going forward if you'd done that. Right. So, does that cover about everything for the Vikings?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, for the
Right.
moves, we got to talk about builds again.
Yes, I think we need to go to the clean map. There are a few things that we'll need to talk about. So there's a couple of retreats here. Obviously, these guys are wheeling. Narva's retreat doesn't matter, and Dijon's also doesn't matter. This I hadn't mentioned, I think, but Bordeaux worked with Sardinia to put them into Genoa. Sardinia renames to Sardinia Piedmont here, which I think is one of the few actual historical nations that a place got renamed to on these on this map. But yeah, so here we are. These are the build. No, these are.
Retreats.
Oh, these are the results of the retreats, right? And then we've got the clean map. So, negotiation-wise, there is a fair bit going on here. I'm gonna start with the wheel because I think what happened in the wheel here is the single most important thing that happened on the board this turn. Specifically, Trieste moving into Innsbruck. It's only one move, right? But it has some massive consequences because of how many people Trieste just declared war on. And I think Trieste handled this negotiation incredibly well, right? Coming off the back of this. Because it's very easy to go for a stab and then be labeled as the stabber, right? And everyone just comes for you and crushes you immediately. instantly, Trieste leans into the idea that they are assisting the Italians, which is this alliance down here, against what would be a future oppressive force for them, right? They're like, okay, well, there was no way that the wheel was going to just stand around and do nothing, right? They are clearly not going to just leave this how it is. I have made this stab for the good of Italy. Basically, we need to unite against the wheel and push them back. And they include Venice in this, right? And they've just moved out of Venice in order to take Innsbruck. So there's a really good baseline for an alliance there for bringing in this unit in Switzerland, which is absolutely vital against the wheel's units. Note that the wheel isn't actually too much out of position to defend against this, right? Their units are still kind of clumped in this area, especially since Innsbruck had to move back to Bavaria here. Oh, wait, no, sorry. Innsbruck is coming off the board because of this stab. So actually, they're not incredibly well defensively positioned, but they can pivot south, and Italy doesn't immediately have the units to deal with this, right? So bringing in this unit in Switzerland would be absolutely incredible for them. And they do really well with this narrative, right? They immediately get Rome on board, who was previously a wheel member, and is absolutely committed. Sardinia Piedmont is very, very happy with this. They were basically saying the wheel will be a threat in the future, so they're immediately committed as well. Naples goes along with it, Sicily goes along with it, and I think Bordeaux also, well, I know Bordeaux immediately goes, yes, I'm with the Italians. This is great, let's go anti-wheel. The wheel is a terrible thing. Which I look at and then go, wait, don't say that. Because Paris is part of the wheel. And Paris is adjacent to me, you may note. I'm also... Sorry. I'm also now adjacent to Azores, who is part of Morocco, who are planning to come against France and attack us. So if we turn Paris against us, we have a big problem. And Bordeaux immediately says, oh no, Paris is chill. We've been working together. Like, Paris basically isn't a wheel member in my mind. I'm like, well, yeah, that's true, but they are a wheel member. They might not be in your mind, but they are a wheel member. You need to treat them like such. So basically, this whole negotiation during this phase was Bordeaux going, hell yeah, Italy, go on, get those wheel bastards, take them out. And me going, wait, please, that's not what Bordeaux means by that. We're being, like, we're a happy French alliance, right? Let's solidify this French alliance and say, hey, you know, we're all perfectly happy together, and Paris is allowed to be part of the wheel, and that's completely fine, because Paris clearly wasn't going to abandon the wheel here. They were still very much aligned with Luxembourg and Strasbourg, and I just really wanted to make sure that Paris wasn't alienated by what Bordeaux was doing, so I was trying to walk back everything that Bordeaux was saying in that conversation. And I think at some point I actually just proposed, hey, how about we form like a slightly bigger French alliance with Strasbourg and Luxembourg? And that idea doesn't catch on just yet, especially considering Luxembourg has just knocked me out of my center, right? They're a little... But I really wanted Paris to feel comfortable in this alliance and not murder me. So that's the result of what happened there, and we end up with basically the Italians versus the wheel being a massive conflict that's about to happen over here. As a result of that, another thing that happens in this phase is because the Italians are now solidified as this alliance, and Bordeaux is officially included in the Italians by Sardinia, who's kind of their leader. Trieste is obviously like their leader on this front and the person most appealing to that alliance, but they're like Sardinia is the one taking the leading role over the alliance for the most part. Sardinia officially says yes, Bordeaux is part of the Italians, they are with us, and because Spain is going, we're gonna attack Bordeaux, Bordeaux calls for aid and says, hey, Italy, we need your assistance here. We need you to come and help us kill Spain and Morocco, basically. And Italy says yes. And so suddenly we have basically all as a result of Trieste making this one move, right? We suddenly have a strong alliance here that includes Bordeaux that is now going to move against the wheel and against Spain at the same time, and which therefore directly impacts me. And so I'll be talking about that a bit more through the next few phases, but that's basically where the negotiations were lying on this turn. I'm trying to think what else I needed to mention here. I think I kind of covered it because that was the other thing I needed to mention down here was what Spain was doing. Spain was saying they were going to attack in here, right? And then at this point, suddenly everyone around them declares war on them. But right now they're still very much going, okay, we need to expand, we need to push out into France. That was... Oh yeah, sorry, there was one more thing here, which is the Rabat situation, right? Rabat...
I can go into this one.
Do you want to take it?
Yeah.
Go
I
for
was paying a lot of attention to this. So, what happens here is that there are two people on this board that are on three supply centers. That is Rabat, and that is Astrakhan, who renamed themselves the Golden Horde.
Yep. Nice name.
Finland renamed themselves to Finland. Finally. Amazing. Yes. So they renamed themselves to Finland here. They focused on negotiating to keep the Golden Horde contained. Because Finland and I have realized that there are two powers that are both on three centers that are both in the corners, and their regions can't get their shit together. They need our help to do it. So please figure it out. And so Finland focused on the Golden Horde, and by doing that, he interacted very closely with the HBE, because they're obviously the closest people to talk to, and even Moscow. And so they were like, all right, we're going to figure out how to not let the Golden Horde snowball any further. I looked at Rabat and figured out how I was going to try to get that region to deal with Rabat. I have much less leverage than Finland does, because Finland's units might actually be able to be useful against Moscow and the Golden Horde. Smolensk, you see, is actually kind of close. Skagerrak is the closest unit that I have to Rabat, and my unit is 1,000,000 miles away, approximately.
Yep.
So what exactly can I offer? Very little. All that I can do is do my best to make Rabat appear unhinged, and hopefully get his allies to stab him. So I do a thing that I'm somewhat good at, which is pissing people off. And I get Rabat angry. By just being a snarky little shit to Rabat for like, I don't know, 2 hours or something over retreats and going into builds. And I point out inconsistencies in his arguments. I point out things that he's done when he's lied. I claim that he stabbed more than he has actually stabbed. I just am an annoying little shit. And Rabat gets really pissed off, and he becomes less rational when he's pissed. And his neighbors, Marrakesh and Azores, are also doing stuff. I claim I'm doing this to get Azores to go north, because I actually do want Iberian Current to go north, because I see that we're not making progress on Great Britain right now. I would like to kill Ireland still, so I would love to see Iberian Current move up to Rockall Rise and help us mess with Great Britain. But really, it's because I just need... I have a 3-center power that I need to see get taken care of. And that's Rabat. So this is the point of this. And it basically works. And as a result of the negotiations that Rabat has with their neighbors, they agree to waive a build instead of building.
Mm-hmm.
As a way to show I'm not stabbing. I was never going to stab anyone. And so that was a success. Mission accomplished.
I think that's a really important thing that happens here, right? If Rabat builds a unit here, they have a lot more snowball potential than if they hold off.
Oh,
Um,
oh yeah. It's so hard to stop them if they build anything like fleet or army. They're just so strong.
yes, especially considering that Spain was actively working with Morocco at this time, and Spain had basically just gained a new front and a bunch of enemies over here, so they can't really commit to coming back to attack Rabat either, right? So yeah, that that was crucial. At this point, I also get quite involved with talking to Rabat, but on my end,
Mhm.
it's more of a jokey thing, right? I think they don't have it just yet, but soon they have the emblem of the rabbit goes on their unit because rabbit, haha. But I talk a lot about how the French are going rabbit hunting and how we're going to exterminate the stabber and all this stuff. But it's much more friendly banter than what you were doing, I think.
Mine was annoying banter. Just
Yes.
constant needles. Constantly needling. God.
Yeah. I do actually like. This is not to do with what you were doing, this is to do with what I was doing, which was jovially declaring war on them from a distance. So, poking the rabbit with a very long stick. I do actually recommend that in some situations. I think when you're a little distance away from someone, friendly banter that is also declaration of war or adverse to what they want to do, it can be useful, right? It's kind of playful in a way, and that gets people friendly with you, and that is keeping it light is always quite a good idea if you want to have some allies later on. Um, yeah, I don't think I can talk more about that yet because the results of it don't happen yet. But that is basically what was going on with me. I was kind of poking the rabbit and going, "Hey, we're going rabbit hunting. The French are coming for you." Da 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 da. But more importantly, you got them to or they decided to waive the Rabat build. So yeah, is there more you want to talk about during the builds?
Uh-huh. Not too much. The Vikings didn't have too many builds this phase. We have Archangelsk, who we were contemplating building a fleet, but decided pretty quickly to build an army. And then at this point, I got checked out because I'm like, okay, great. Archangelsk is going to build an army. They're going to support themselves into Vala, Gotha, and then support themselves into Moscow. They're going to be on 3 next year, nice and easy. Finland is going to be able to work with me against the Commonwealth, and great, we just have nice plan. Everything's neat and buttoned up. But what I didn't realize is that as part of Finland's negotiations to deal with Astrakhan and the Golden Horde, things got out of whack over there, and I didn't quite follow exactly what was happening. Um, but it involves Archangelsk doing stuff.
Right. Ouch.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I was paying huge amounts of attention to what was happening over here. I know that at this point, initially the Holy Balkan Empire is just these nations right here, right? At this point, it kind of extends to include everyone in this area as an anti-Golden Horde thing. So this is where the Holy Balkan Empire starts becoming kind of huge, uh, with
Yeah.
with this many units. Yeah. So shall we move on then?
Yeah, let's see builds.
All
Oh, we
right.
talked about, yeah. The
Yes.
robot agreed to waive the build, yeah, as
Build
part of a
wave.
not stabbing snowballing thing.
Oh yes, important thing. Luxembourg also waives the build. This is something I didn't talk that much about last turn, right? But Luxembourg had said, "Hey, I'm gonna wave and then build a fleet." I didn't really believe it, but during the previous turns negotiations, there had also been a bit of discussion over. Okay, I'm getting Ghent, so Strasbourg can take Luxembourg, right? Or someone can take Luxembourg. I don't remember who... Because Strasbourg is going up here. Maybe they thought someone else was going up here. Actually, maybe I've got this whole thing confused and it was another turn. Oh, no, that was it. Okay, so the reason that Innsbruck had gone to Freiburg, I think, was that there was like a chain of units that were going to get Luxembourg. No, you know what?
Well,
I don't remember enough about
that's this year, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm too confused. This is this is too long ago in my memory for it to be accurate. There was some kind of an agreement that Luxembourg would go to Strasbourg at some point, but I am thinking of a year later. So, Amsterdam comes off the board. We are very sad for Amsterdam. Hoog in heaven. But two of us have survived. Utrecht is in Kiel. I'm in Nantes. We are so far away that there is no chance of us coordinating for a while. But at least we survived. We can spam the WeHoog emoji at one another.
Yes.
Yes. I did also want to say, very briefly, because I don't think I mentioned this in the first episode, but I talked about how chaotic the UK is, right? With all of them stabbing each other and none of them being willing to, like, make a long-term alliance. I got the impression that London was the kind of player who would absolutely be down to make a long-term alliance with anyone who was willing to, right? If they had started in, like, the Wheel or in Scandinavia, they would have been really set, right? They weren't the chaos causer here, but just because everyone around them was, like, completely unwilling to do that, they end up in, like, the situation where they're just going all the time, what the hell is going on over here? What am I supposed to do?
Yep.
It was kind of hilarious to watch. And also quite sad.
Pressing,
Sorry,
but
London. Yeah. So build-wise, I think that's about everything. So shall we go to the clean map?
Sure.
Alright. So, clean map. This is coming into the following year now. So do you want to talk about what's going on up here in Scandinavia?
Yes. So, major thing. Trieste stabbed, right? Trieste is in Innsbruck, and the Wheel is now saying, oh my god, we need to deal with the Italian secession. So, Saxony and Silesia and Prague and Stuttgart are all getting pulled south to go and reinforce because they realize they need every unit they possibly can to hold against that attack. Now, I want to work with the Commonwealth and have Podolia move to Galicia, Krakow move to Silesia, and just absolutely pancake the Wheel and just crush it. But the Commonwealth is attacking Prussia, and that's not going to happen. So the Commonwealth here is like, hey, we're not going to stop attacking Prussia, but if Prussia can manage to run away into Brandenburg, then we're not going to stop that. So we'll just take Gdansk. How does that sound? And it's like, I mean, I guess we'll say yes, because there's nothing for it. But fine. And Finland and Smolensk is like, okay, I'm not going to take any of your centers this turn. And as part of the negotiations with the HBE, I believe he's agreed to move into Kursk.
Gotcha.
So that's an agreement that he's made. And I forget what's going on with Novgorod and Arkhangelsk. I think Moscow is involved with also hitting the Golden Horde. And so we, like, weren't going to take Moscow unless Arkhangelsk can get it, but I don't... But then Finland does a cool job of negotiating to ensure that Arkhangelsk gets Moscow anyways. This is relevant because Trondheim, you'll notice, is still on one center and has been a fellow tactician and a loyal member of the Vikings up in the north. And we wanted to make sure he got onto two centers. And so we didn't want to get Arkhangelsk onto three while we had members still on one. So we figured, all right, we're gonna send Norwegian Sea over to Barents Sea and then have him take Arkhangelsk while Arkhangelsk grows to 3. So Arkhangelsk actually stays on 2, but then Trondheim builds an extra fleet. And this way, even in the face of the most unified Great Britain army, um, Trondheim can build another fleet. We're going to be fine. Great Britain can't do anything, and we'll be okay, and we'll crack them later, I guess. Whatever.
And the most
Slash short.
unified Great Britain thing is is a bit of a weird thing to say. I think the most unified possible Great Britain is not very unified at all. But yeah,
Oh yeah,
it's
absolutely. But this is the most unified they're ever going to get, and like even in the face of this, they're not going to make any progress. We want to ensure that. So, all right, whatever. That's fine. So that was how that tactics go. I'm in the Skagerrak, and I don't want to leave Skagerrak. I want to just sit here forever. So I forget what I do. I think I support Bergen into North Sea or something. I don't know. I just never want to leave, so I'm gonna sit there. But the most important thing is that I don't sit in Skagerrak. Nope. I want to sit in the Skagerrak forever. But I also see this as an opportunity to actually attack the Northern Wheel. Right? Kiel, Rostock, and Brandenburg, and Bremen, or Kiel is Utrecht now. But all of these are now like open for the taking because the wheel is pulling back now, and they're dealing with the south, so we can actually crush this. We need to keep King of Prussia alive, so we need to let them into Brandenburg. So we need to be tapping Rostock and doing stuff. Unfortunately, Copenhagen doesn't want to do anything because Copenhagen wants to stay neutral still. And now we have a new person in Utrecht who is looking for an alliance to stay alive, was happy to join an alliance to be a useful member, and then showed initiative and hopped into Kiel. So, hey, Viking induction. And we couldn't officially make him a Viking yet, but I'm like, hey, Gothenburg, go ahead and support Utrecht into Copenhagen because we should do that.
Did Gothenburg not
And
question this at all?
no, Gothenburg was pretty much on board with it. Yeah. And then I don't want Copenhagen retreating into Scania
Yeah,
because that
because
would
then
be
it
bad.
goes to Stockholm.
Then it goes to Stockholm or Gothenburg, and that's no bueno. So I need to use Skagerrak to move into Scania. And it's like, all right, fine. Narva, you'll notice, is a useless fleet. It sits there and doesn't do anything. We're at war with the Commonwealth, though, so it's not moving back into the Gulf of Finland to stab anybody. So I'll just move it into the Gulf of Riga. Who knows? It might do something useful later, like move to the Baltic Sea or something. We'll see. And then King of Prussia attacks Brandenburg, and then on the British front, like North Sea and whatever, can do whatever they want. Because we're moving Norwegian Sea out to the east, I think we have Bergen. No, I'm pretty sure we don't have Bergen cover Norwegian Sea.
I mean, there's no. Well, is there a reason? Because Iceland does have 2 on Greenland. It does. It could make sense to try and cover Norwegian, but
Well, Norwegian's moving east. I forget what I want Bremen to do here.
what you want Bergen to do? You mean? Yeah, Bremen's
Yeah.
down
I've made that mistake before, by the way, in game. It was great.
here.
Didn't confuse anyone.
But yeah, I can't remember what the English negotiations this turn were. I feel like London probably wants to do something with North Sea, right? Well, no, they have Edinburgh and Plymouth behind them, so they can't. Like, this is the problem with having fleets. This England isn't as bad of a place to have fleets as the England in classic diplomacy, I think. As in, you can rotate them a little more effectively. But armies are still better if you want to attack stuff, right? Which is exactly why the Oxford army could put something in Plymouth on the first year, but the fleets cannot do anything really to each other.
I think I have North Sea move into Wadden Sea, is what I have North Sea do.
Right.
Yep, that sounds right, because I want to take northern Germany, right? I want to be focused on that.
Yes.
And
Oh, wait, something super important here that we have forgotten to cover. After Narva died, there is another pope, right?
Oh yeah, that's
So
right.
Narva is the last bumble
Yeah.
pope. I think Narva straight up nominates the next pope themselves. So this one isn't a vote. This one is just Narva says this is who the next pope will be, and the next pope
Yeah.
is Bremen.
Yeah. I
Who,
remember that.
yeah, you will note Ezio is now talking about attacking.
Yeah, that's funny. The Fleet and Wadensee. Yep.
So Ezio has currently murdered one pope, two popes, and is now targeting a third Bumble Pope. The poor persecuted Bumbles in the Vikings.
Specifically the Pope, to be honest, but also Copenhagen's a bumble, so.
Yes. Yeah. So very soon I'm sure you'll purge all the Bumbles from this region. This is,
We'll see.
But yeah. So what else is happening here? Should I talk about my area now?
Yeah, I've
Okay.
talked about the Vikings and the Commonwealth and the wheel going to war with the Italian secession, so what's going on in Nantes?
Yes, alright. So, you will recall on the last turn that Bordeaux initially wanted support into Nantes, right? And then Sardinia stepped in, and Sardinia is now Bordeaux's best friend, right? Because they also joined this Italian alliance together, and Sardinia is rooting hard for Bordeaux, and is now saying, hey, Italy, we should go and smash into Spain to help them. Sardinia had said, you know, the best way to deal with this is you support Nantes in on this turn, and then Nantes gives you, well, Ghent gives you Nantes on the next turn. And I'm just now thinking, okay, well, I'm hoping I can just pass that off and go, okay, and hopefully that doesn't actually happen. But Bordeaux is kind of insistent on it happening at the start of this turn. And I can't remember exactly what caused this flip, but at some point, he was like, he agreed that it should be Paris that goes into Nantes instead, right? And I think the big reason for that is he really wants my fleet mobilized against Spain at this point and against Morocco. And of course, I kind of want to just sit in Nantes here. I don't, especially with this unit in Iberian Current, which is a really frustrating unit. I don't especially want to leave, but I know that I have to be useful to these players in order to survive, right? And that I did make the deal, hey, you can have this on the next turn, so I'll leave on this one. And Bordeaux comes up with an interesting solution to this, right? He goes, okay, well, I'm going to support Paris into Nantes on this turn. You can hold, that's completely fine. But then you get dislodged, and then you'll be able to retreat to whichever of Bay of Biscay, Iberian Current, or English Channel is unoccupied. And I wasn't a huge fan of the idea. But it's not like I had a lot of choice, right? I've basically been saved by this person, and if these guys decide that I'm gonna die, then I'm gonna die. There is nothing I can do about that. So I do agree to their demands, and then more happens on like the Spanish front, and the Italians coordinating with Bordeaux, and Bordeaux decides, actually no, I need to use Bordeaux to help against Spain here, to go down into, I think, Aquitaine, it might be Marseille, is one of these two. So he goes, okay, Nantes, I'm not going to support Paris in anymore, but you should go to Biscay, and Paris goes into Nantes, and then you convoy them over into Spain on the next turn. And in my mind, I'm like, that is insane. Why would I ever do that, right? If I go to Biscay and try and convoy Paris across, if that convoy fails, which is extremely likely to do, like, look at this Madrid unit here in Navarra, and the Portugal unit can cover Coruna, and these two are working together, right? Then I just die. That is terrible for me. But at the same time, I need to keep these guys on side. And
What else
Paris,
are you gonna do?
yeah, it's like I am a vassal to them. I basically offered vassalization, and they are calling me on it. They are saying, okay then, be a vassal. Like, do what we say. And I don't have a choice. So I just go, okay, well, I will do what you say. I will go to Bay of Biscay and I will pray in the in the fall turn that I survive this. And a lot of my negotiation this turn then was focused on making friends with Azores. Just like being as friendly as I possibly could to Azores and just chatting and variously talking about stuff. I can't remember exactly what we ended up talking about, but we had a lot of banter, and at the end of the day, we were both quite friendly with each other. So I was fairly convinced that he wouldn't end up attacking me, and he wouldn't end up helping these guys. At the same time, I was like, okay, well, maybe if I need it on the next turn, if I think it's absolutely not going to work, right, the convoy, I can get Azores' support into Nantes. And then just knock Paris out. But that's a last resort thing, because if I end up at war with Paris and Bordeaux, I am so screwed no matter what, right? They have so many armies here, they can just kill me immediately.
Yeah, also, Azores would probably be committing suicide to support you back into Nantes because of what's going on near their home. Because due to
Well,
the negotiations, someone's ending up in Sea of Azores this turn, and they're moving north. So,
well, I think actually Sea of Azores was agreed to be DMZ'd on this turn by
oh,
everyone. So,
well,
because
hmm.
Rabat and Portugal. Well, I call this power Portugal because they're in Porto. They're not called
But
Porto.
they were
They're
Tangier.
Tangier. Yeah, that's correct. So they're still technically working together, even though I'm throwing a lot of shade at Rabat over this time for their previous stab on Tangier. Tangier is still kind of okay to work with Rabat here, and Marrakesh is the same. I think Marrakesh was demanding that they swap a supply center back to them, or something like that. But I'm not 100% sure how that works out.
Well, I mean, we know how it works out. We're not sure what the negotiations
Yeah,
were
yeah,
like exactly.
yes. And of course, over this front, Italy is basically negotiating to come this way. I don't remember what the exact tactics were on this front. And a really important note is remember Corsica is a Viking. And Corsica is still being the Viking auditor and doing all the Viking audit stuff. It was very amusing to see, but they are not an Italian. They're not going to be helping the Italians in any way. And I think even at a later point, they decide to assist the Spanish, even though they can't really, right? They're just an army. They're just sitting there. But like in words, they are saying, "Hey, I'm helping Spain here."
Yeah, but also worth noting, right? They can't do anything to help the Italians either, right? Like
Yeah,
their
they are
army is
just
just
sat
there
there.
being useless. It's so funny.
And
Oh, I should have said the audit results. I don't remember. Nobody
all
gets
right,
kicked out of the Vikings in this audit phase is the important part.
yeah, because no one stabbed, right? Everyone was kind of
Everyone
happy-go-lucky.
did everything they wanted. We all got greens, which is, I think, what made it cool.
Yeah,
Except for maybe Copenhagen got a yellow. I think Copenhagen got a yellow.
okay, that would make sense. I was gonna say, how did they feel about you kicking Copenhagen out of the Vikings, essentially? Um,
Well, I mean, hey,
yeah, but so that is how things were going in my region of the world. I was also very heavily trying to convince like Spain to stab Morocco or Morocco to stab Spain, mainly Spain to stab Morocco, but it was a pretty like terrible effort. Like there was no way it was going to work because Italy was coming in on this front anyway. So that they wouldn't turn around and attack their allies when they've got another front that has opened up. And Tunis and Berbers are still very much neutral in this war. They are just sitting there and trying to survive. So, yeah. Do you want to... Is there anything more to talk about on your side?
no, we talked about what the plans are for the upcoming turn. Let's see if everything works out according to plan.
Alright. Yeah, let's go to moves. So, where do you want to start here?
Let's start with the Eastern Vikings. And their coordination with the HBE, because here's where like the HBE really gets its feet under it as an alliance. They coordinate with Moscow to get pressure on Astrakhan and the Golden Horde. They get Constantinople into Anatolia. They get the unit in Constantinople, who is Sarajevo, into Constantinople. They get jettisoned back into Constantinople. Um, like things are nice and safe over here. Their alliance gets good, and in the Viking East, things continue to make good progress. We see Arkhangelsk just walks into Moscow unopposed. Wonderful. We love to see it. Um, Finland moves Smolensk into Kursk, which is great according to plan. We could technically attack Bakhchisara here, but we're our priority remains keeping the Golden Horde locked up and crushed, so we don't have to worry about them snowballing and winning. So we're fine with that. Happy to have Kursk still pressure Kiev, notably, because Kursk can always go for that little stab there. Um, so that's great. Hells goes to Pskov, not into Narva even. Still threatens Narva, but I'm not too worried about that. Narva's back in Gulf of Riga. Um, and things look good. In the northern German, the Commonwealth front, we see that um, the Commonwealth sticks to their agreement and they don't mess with Krakow. They just get supported into Gdansk because they're still attacking us, but whatever. They're making words to say that we're not at war and like, hey, look, we can be friends and stuff, and we're not trying to kill each other. And look, we made slight demilitarizing moves with Smolensk to Kursk and whatever. I'm rolling my eyes at all of this stuff because we're at war and it's fine, but whatever, sure. But King of Prussia makes it out alive, gets into Brandenburg. We successfully get into Copenhagen. That's great. Copenhagen's gonna get disbanded. One more bumblehead for my collection. Ain't
The
that
poor
wonderful?
Bumbles. This is,
Poor bumbles. This is all nice and smooth. Things went basically as well as they could. There's one major annoyance, and that is that Bremen saw the move into Wadden Sea and said, I don't like that. So they bounced us out. So no progress was made on that front with that specific move. And Wessex, in fact, supported themselves into the North Sea to kick us out. And so we have something big to talk about with this retreat. We'll talk about that once we start talking about the retreats. But in the north, you'll see that Ireland supports themselves into Greenland Sea, so Greenland Sea retreats. But it can just go into Spitsbergen, and Brits really can't make any progress still. So no worries, everything's fine.
yeah.
All right, quick Vikings.
I'm interested. This Rostock move that gets into Kiev. Sorry, not Kiev. Kiel.
Kiel, yeah.
Yeah, as well. Rostock wasn't coordinating with you at this point, right?
Nope.
No, they're just doing their own thing and trying to get to two centers. Unfortunately, it is going to mean that Brandenburg gets to retreat into Rostock, so Bremen has position on Kiel still, and Rostock isn't going to get that extra unit from that. Although I think Brandenburg is still aligned with Rostock at this point, so they're not going to, like... They're probably not going to attack Kiel. Yeah. So what was going on in the south here during my, on my end? You can see the rabbits have now appeared on Rabat's units. The Italians don't make a huge amount of progress, right? They managed to get into Ligurian Sea, that is something. The rest of them, they're just doing almost nothing at all. They really needed to support this move of Sardinian into Algerian, but I think the general strategy for the Italians on this turn was like, please guess what I'm gonna do, because I don't want to inform my opponent as to what I'm going to do, right? And so it doesn't really work out. Thankfully, they do manage to avoid a Sardinia dislodge. They could have been attacked by Baleares here, and that would have blown up this fleet. But Baleares goes for Tunis instead. And as you can see, Cairo is also assisting Tunis. I think Cairo is working with the Italians at this point. Athens, I'm not 100% sure what's going on here, but at this point, Naples has renamed themselves to Ionian Sea Listening Post because they're just planning to sit there in Ionian Sea, and I think that's okay with these powers as well. This one is just tapping it to make sure it stays there. So over on this front, more importantly, Bordeaux manages to win the guess of going to Aquitaine, right? So they didn't outright say, they did say at some point, I think I need to go to Aquitaine, but they didn't outright confirm that they were going there. And the interesting thing about what's going on over here, right, is that if Spain tries to bounce that, if Madrid tries to bounce that, and fails, like, in that situation, they end up pretty out of position if they just end up in Aquitaine here, right? They kind of need their unit to be near Madrid. Otherwise, they're not going to take anything around here. So if their unit gets trapped in this area by these units, they could be in a really problematic situation, especially considering there are no friendly armies to help Madrid, right? It's just this one army in the entire continent area, and that has to hold down everything by itself. So they decide to hold instead, thinking that Bordeaux is going to support Normandy into Nantes, I think. And Bordeaux just goes to Aquitaine and manages to win the guess on that front. So we have an interesting situation there, but more interesting. So Tangiers moves into Lisbon, right? And Lisbon moves into Sea of Azores, which was very much not agreed, and which Azores was really angry about. So Rabat goes in here and basically says, "Hey Azores, I'm going to kill you now. I'm going here, there's nothing you can do about it because you've just moved to the English Channel." And yeah, Azores has made this English Channel move. They were planning to put some pressure on England and see if they could work with anyone on that front, and suddenly, as a result, they've left themselves open back here. So, yeah, I don't know if this here was agreed, because I thought that... I'm pretty sure Sea of Azores was supposed to be demilitarized. But maybe they'd agreed to move out to Cadiz or something like that. I think they definitely did agree to give a center over. But yeah, so... oh, the other things that happen, there's some mobilization going on in the wheel, and most importantly, the Trieste attempt to get Venice on board. They managed to get basically the entirety of Italy on board with their plan, but Venice was not happy with what they'd done. So Venice was the one person who Trieste was targeting for friendship, who just decided not to be a friend. They went, I don't think they outright said they were sticking with the wheel, but they kind of refused to engage Trieste on any of their alliance plans. So then Trieste kind of has to pivot into, okay, well, what do I do if this unit is against me? Priority number one is to take that unit off the board, so support Rome into Venice. Sarajevo is aligned with the wheel, so they have to bounce Croatia here. Suddenly this front isn't looking so good for them. I think it would have been looking pretty good for them if Venice had taken their side, but Venice doesn't. Yeah, I think that's basically everything move-wise. Oh, you'll note Luxembourg moves into Utrecht as well. That is agreed. I can't remember why that's agreed.
Here's where Utrecht, the army in Utrecht, is supposed to take Luxembourg.
Oh,
Hesse, right?
Yes, okay.
Is supposed to move into Luxembourg, is the deal.
Yeah, so they were swapping these centers. I think I remember this. Right. I can talk a bit more about what's happening with that on the next turn, because I think that's, well, on the clean map. Are there any other moves you want to discuss here?
Not on the moves, but now is a good time to look at the retreat that
Yes.
Oslo makes.
Okay, so here's the retreat.
So here's the retreat options that Oslo has. You'll notice that Oslo can retreat into the Skagerrak or can retreat into York. Now, we have talked to Azores, and Azores has ended up in English Channel. And now Azores has um, options. They can move into Plymouth. They could get into London if um, Kiel supports them in there, because Kiel is currently in the Southern Bight. So there's a chance there. And so if Oslo, we are in York, then they can move into Oxford and put maximum pressure on Wessex. And with support into London, well, we tap Oxford, we're guaranteed to take one of those two centers. Assuming Kiel sticks with it. We're actually not technically guaranteed to do that, but that's the narrative we're pushing. It taps Amsterdam, or taps the Southern Bight, and London moves to Oxford. Then they bounce everything. But I think this was Wessex's second game of diplomacy, so they were never going to see that tactic if we didn't point it out. And the narrative was that that's what was going to happen. In spite of this, Oslo doesn't say anything and then retreats into Skagerrak. Um,
Yep. This is the retreat here into Skagerrak.
the other important retreat is in Copenhagen, because we discussed that Brandenburg was going to retreat into Rostock and had a guaranteed retreat there. But Copenhagen had only one legal retreat. And Brandenburg realized this, or Bremen, the army in Brandenburg, and they sent a message saying, "Rip Copenhagen," and retreated into Rostock, and they both retreated there, which forces a disband.
I
So,
actually missed that Copenhagen had that possible retreat when I was talking about Brandenburg potentially retreating there. I think
yeah.
as Bremen here, I would have liked to just retreat into Saxony instead to keep my unit on the board. But
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That would have been very nice. But they didn't do that, which was amazing for us. Because now we have more units and can do things. Um, this is what the board looks like in this for this phase. And so we can now go to the fresh map where there is
yes,
no units in Rostock.
yeah.
Cool.
Do you want to talk about your region first here? Because I know that it gets
We should talk about my region last. We should
okay.
do your region first, and like at the rest of the board too, frankly, and then we can talk about the Vikings, because this is where shit gets real.
So I do briefly want to mention what was happening with Luxembourg here. So Luxembourg again, they're supposed to be trading Utrecht for Luxembourg. At some point in this phase, they go to Strasbourg and they say, "Hey, can you leave Luxembourg alone for a year?" You know, I think that way we can like build an extra fleet or something. I forget the exact reasoning they did, and Strasbourg just says yes. I was like looking at that going, "What?" Why would you say yes? You can get your second build. Like, you're going to go down a unit if you do that. That's insane. But they say yes anyway. And so Strasbourg agrees to just let Luxembourg go to 3 dots. I can't remember exactly what they agree to do here. I feel like it might be self-bouncing in Ghent or something. It was enough to make sure that that wasn't an option for English Channel in any case. Right. So my main concern right here, well, I have two main concerns. First main concern is this one. This little problematic hexagon here that is in my home dot, and if that does not get out of my home dot this turn, I will be dead. Right? There is... Oh, there are only 2 other units adjacent to Nantes. So I could still try and default to the plan of get Azores to support me into Nantes, but that's not going to happen, because Azores is being killed by Rabat this turn unless they manage to get into another dot. They desperately need to find somewhere to go, so they are absolutely going to attack a supply center. That leaves a really big problem for me, right? Because if Nantes gets convoyed out, either to Navarra or to Coruna, that means my unit is being involved in that convoy, right? So Nantes is moving out, my unit is occupied, and so nothing else is adjacent. This unit is in Aquitaine, by the way, not Bordeaux. Nothing else is adjacent to Nantes. So if this unit is leaving Nantes, then Azores has a guaranteed take going in here. And that means I will die. That is where Azores will go 100%. right? If I was Azores, I would always go for Nantes here, I think, if they'd agreed to convoy Paris out, because that is just the best chance of survival. If you look at what their options are in the north, they could go for London. That's not going to work, right? Maybe they can get support from Kiel to go to London. They could try that. But it doesn't seem anywhere near as likely as going in this direction. Or they could try for Plymouth, which I felt was like the other possible option and the one I really wanted them to do. So, my initial approach to this was to try and call the convoy plan off. I go to Paris and I go to Bordeaux and I say, hey, this isn't going to work, right? If we try and convoy this out, then Azores goes into Nantes and then I die. You lose my fleet, and my fleet is incredibly useful against the Spanish. I'm the only fleet that the French have. You'll be forced to push through with just armies. And they go, no. We don't care. Right, we are attacking Spain here. You are going to convoy Paris forward, or you are going to die. That is how this will work. And I mean, I can't fault them for that, right? I've basically offered myself as a vassal, and I'm trying to worm my way out of that now that it's looking likely that I'll die as a result. So that isn't going to work.
It's not that bad, right? Because Aquitaine, it's a guaranteed convoy.
So it is a guaranteed convoy, right? If we go Nantes to Navarra. And that's almost the problem. This is what I was looking at, right? If we do a guaranteed moveset, then Azores has 100% confirmation that they can go to Nantes and kill me. And more importantly, survive.
Yeah.
And so, I come up with a bit of an interesting solution now. Because initially I was trying to get Paris to go, hey, go to Normandy or go to Orleans so I can go back and cover Nantes and stop Azores from getting in. And that was what they said no to. So then I said, hey, you know, there are two possible convoys we could do here. We could do the guaranteed one to Navarra, right? With support from Aquitaine. And if we do that, and it's guaranteed, then I will die, because Azores will come in behind me. We could also do a convoy to a Coruna here, which is also very useful. It's arguably more useful against the Spanish. In fact, it's not even arguable, it is more useful against the Spanish, because it can get into Meridia, it can get into Madrid, right? This can't actually be covered against this unit slipping in here, and there's only one Spanish army, remember, so they can't defend this very well. So we have two potential convoy options here. I could have said to them, hey, can we just convoy to A Coruna, because that one isn't guaranteed, and therefore Azores doesn't have reason to attack Nantes anymore, right? They have more reason to try and get to somewhere else that they're... Suddenly this isn't a guaranteed moveset. But unfortunately, if we do that, if we just agree to convoy to Coruna, then Madrid will see it and will just bounce Coruna, right? So that doesn't really work. So my solution instead was to go to Paris and say, okay, Paris, flip a coin this turn. If you get heads, go to Coruna. If you get tails, go to Navarre. I will also flip a coin this turn. If I get heads, I will convoy you to Coruna. If I get tails, I will convoy you to Navarre. And Bordeaux, please just enter the support to Navarre, right? So the interesting thing about the way this works, in order for a convoy to be successful, you have to match the order of the unit that you're convoying. So in this situation, that will only happen if we both get heads or if we both get tails. If we get different results, if I get a head and they get a tail, or they get a head and I get a tail, one of us will go to Coruna and the other one will convoy them to the wrong location. So it won't work and I will die, right? If we do match up, then we have either a guaranteed take of Navarra or we have a debatable shot at Coruna, depending on whether Navarre goes and covers it, right? The important thing about this is that it makes sure that there is quite some possibility that Nantes is still occupied at the end of this turn. which means that Azores can't just attack Nantes and know that it will go through. So essentially, I am making it a lot more likely that Paris kills me here, but I am taking away the almost guaranteed possibility that that Azores kills me. Because if this is guaranteed to move, then Azores will come in. There is no question about that. In my mind. Now, as it turns out, Azores wasn't planning to go for me anyway, because they liked our banter on the previous turn and just wanted to go to Plymouth. But they weren't telling anyone that because they wanted to get in, right? So I got that from discussion afterwards, and from reading the Void postgame, but at the time I felt like this was a genius idea, right? I am
increasing the chance dramatically of somebody killing me through a failed convoy. I love it.
But in doing so, I am taking away... If I was Azores and I saw this thing happen, I would very likely go for a different setup, because I think there is a chance that Ghent, being stupid, is going to kill themselves, and therefore they kill me in that possibility, and I don't want that to be a possibility, so I'll go somewhere else, right? So it's one of those things that kind of sounds stupid, but it is... I think it is actually a good move. But then, Bordeaux fixes the whole situation. And Bordeaux does this by atting myself and Paris and saying, hey, Nostradamus told me to tell you to look for some information. Right? And this is gonna be controversial because this is very blatantly against the rules of the no encryption stuff. But Bordeaux had used my never gonna give you up strategy from earlier, right? The whole encoding a message in the first letter of each message, to say keep your orders the same. Keep going to Navarra, right? Just keep this convoy, and we don't care about the 50-50 flip. We're guaranteeing that you both get the same coin flip by just saying go to Navarra anyway, but hopefully in a way that's hidden enough that Azores still thinks that there's a chance Paris will be in Nantes.
Notably, Azores was one of those people you couldn't hide information from in Elm Hall, because Azores was in Elm Hall.
Yes.
So the whole secret communication in Elm was tough.
All of these people in Elm Hall, like basically the entire south of the map was in Elm Hall, so now I was properly involved in Elm Hall and actually having to read it. It was very sad. But, yeah, that is what happened at the end of the day. Bordeaux kind of fixed the whole situation by encrypting a message that told us where to go. So, yes... We did kind of cheat. So this is my Ezio moment of the reaction thing that happened.
Okay, except I posted mine, I told the GM, I cleared it up in public and made sure everyone knew exactly what had happened. I was like, hey, this no move has happened in between here and there, and here's the thing that I said, while it was still legal when I did it. And so, then CaptainMeme over here just has somebody else cheat for him.
I did not tell Bordeaux to cheat. I also wasn't aware that encryption was illegal at this point in the game. Because
It's a public press game.
Yes, that is fair.
Encryption's always illegal in public press. It's part of the rules of the game. It's like saying you can't post a thing in public to say, go to this hidden Discord that I have, and we'll chat over there instead. See the most recent message I sent over there, right?
Okay, so at this moment I will say, please, Flare, do not ban me for having used it. In fact, I didn't use it. It's not my fault. Please do not ban Bordeaux for their use of this. They probably hadn't read the rules well enough.
They almost certainly hadn't read the rules. I think Bordeaux was new to diplomacy, yeah.
They were also copying what I'd done earlier with the Rickroll, just with negotiation this time.
Yeah, but it's Rickrolling. Whatever. Anyways, it's okay.
Yes. So this
Good news, CaptainMeme doesn't win the game. Spoiler alert, so it didn't actually matter.
How dare you spoil that? I think it's... Yes, that is kind of obvious. But Nantes was then... So then we had locked in. Nantes goes to Navarra. Aquitaine supports Nantes to Navarra. Madrid didn't spot what Bordeaux meant by the Nostradamus thing. I think most people who hadn't been near me when I did the Rickroll thing didn't know what it meant, and most people who had been near me didn't care what Bordeaux was saying, right? Because Bordeaux is not adjacent to them. So it actually worked out pretty well on that front. And that is what we end up deciding to do. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything from my side. The Italians were planning to push in against the Spanish. In fact, I think this might actually be the turn where the Spanish and the Spanish start trying to piece out the Italians by offering them Tunis. But I think actually that's probably next turn, so I'll wait until then to do it. Do you want to talk about what's going on here with Oslo?
Well, I was gonna get to Oslo at the end because the timing of
Oh.
this was later in the phase. So to keep the phrasing of things, we're gonna start looking at the east. So Finland has everything nice and sorted and cleaned up over in the east, and so he's kept on his good negotiations with the HBE to keep the Golden Horde locked up button tight. I think it works out so that the Golden Horde stays on 3 because we can support Moscow into Ostracon from Dawn with
Oh,
Moscow
that
supports Dawn with
Moscow. Yeah, yeah.
Ostracon. Yes, our army in Moscow supports the army in Dawn, who is the Moscow player into Ostracon. Um,
Yep.
and I think we do that, and then we also like can mess with Georgia. But if we put 3 on Georgia, then then Circassia just handles it. So but Moscow obviously needs to go to Ostrakhan, or else Moscow dies.
Yes.
So it's a little unfortunate. But this was, I think, guaranteed to work. The way that with the moves that the Golden Horde made, we would have rather had the Golden Horde. We would have rather Moscow move straight into Ostrakhan, but oh well. Either way, point is, the East things are working out, and we're going to have Trondheim take Arkhangelsk, plans to build a fleet and be nice and happy and have things go well. I noticed with my fleet in the Gulf of Riga that I border Wilno. I noticed this forever ago. It's why I moved here. Um, I don't know if Wilno notices this. There have been a lot of negotiations with talks about building fleets between the Commonwealth and between the Commonwealth and Poland, right? Or Prussia, sorry. And Wilno has never mentioned the prospect of them building a fleet. It's never even come up a little bit as a possibility. Like, they could have theoretically built 2 at once and stuff. Or, I take it back, they did mention it once earlier on. Either way, they didn't notice that I was in Gulf of Riga or something. I thought there was a reasonable chance that they want to cover Kiev, because Kursk is next to Kiev, and they were in Smolensk, and Wilno was scared of them. So I'm like, hey, Wilno can probably go to Kiev. Also with Krakow, and this is at a time when we're like trying to claim to be at peace with the Commonwealth. So I try really hard to get Krakow, who is now in Warsaw, to move to Podolia because I say, hey, get out there, be useful, do stuff. I am desperately hoping that Prussia in Krakow can recognize that if Warsaw moves out, it'll be open, and then Krakow can sneak into Warsaw. And then I'm hoping that this turn I end up in Wilno and Prussia ends up in Warsaw. And first of all, Warsaw would be dead, and I would be in Wilno, and the Commonwealth would be in really bad shape because Prussia would be okay. Um, so that's what I am hoping to have happen. Um, Also, I think it's this phase where, oh, let me double check. Sorry, I think Nuremberg does something in this phase, and
Oh, is this... Okay, yeah, I think I know what you're talking
is this the
about.
phase that happens?
Uh, I don't. Should I just go forward and check? Hang on. Yes, it is.
Great. So in this phase, Nuremberg makes the least secret negotiation ever. Because people like have tried to sneak messages into Elm Hall. And but Nuremberg tries to sneak a message in Elm Hall and in the other 3 halls multiple times. Like he sends this message out like 4 times. And I know that people have seen this message. I know it beyond certainty that other people have noticed this, and I don't want them to see it. Right? Like, I don't. So, okay. Nuremberg has asked Wilno to support them into Prague, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And Wilno is like, yeah, let's go. We're on board with this. I'm happy to do this. But if Nuremberg does this, and everyone else sees it, someone is going to dot Nuremberg.
Yep.
I don't want them to have a dot. I want them to be focused on Italy. I don't want them getting bigger. I want them to stalemate. I want Nuremberg to call this plan off. I want Silesia to like take Vienna or do anything else. I don't want Nuremberg to get it. So when I see Freiburg talking to the rest of the wheel, making plans, I try to be as unsubtle as possible. To be like, hey, you guys should check what Nuremberg's doing. In the hopes that Nuremberg is going to see me say this and be like, oh my god, they know about my plan. I need to audible out of it. I don't know if Nuremberg doesn't notice me do it. I don't know if Nuremberg didn't. Whatever. Nuremberg makes another post with like 2 minutes left in the phase asking, hey, are we still on? Huh? And I'm just like, oh my god. But whatever. That's all we can do there. Okay. Now we go back to the core, the Central Vikings. So we have Copenhagen, which is now Utrecht. We have Gothenburg in Jutland. And we have Prussia and Brandenburg still. So we can take something. We could have Brandenburg support Copenhagen into Rostock. You see, Fleet and Bremen can't reach Rostock. The problem with this is that then, like, Jutland would need to support like me into Copenhagen or something from Scania. I was tempted to try to pitch something like this because then you notice I'm the one taking Copenhagen, and wouldn't that be sweet? But I figured I should again try to grow other Vikings at least a little bit. I should do the thing. So instead, we have Copenhagen support Jutland into Kiel while Brandenburg taps Bremen. And so this way, we don't take Rostock, unfortunately, but we still take Kiel guaranteed. And things are just looking pretty good. And we still have this question mark about Oslo. And we're like, hey, Oslo, can you tell us what's going on? What are you doing with, like, why'd you go back to Skagerrak? That's weird. You could have been in New York. You around? Baby, answer me, please. We need you. Please. And then we get a message saying, huh? What's going on? I didn't even know I could retreat in New York. And then 20 minutes later or so, we see an announcement. There has been a substitution. And I'm like, oh no. Oslo sub soon. There is a new Oslo.
Regime change.
So that's scary. Because obviously, there's Gothenburg and Oslo is in Skagerrak, and that fleet in Skagerrak can just take Gothenburg right now. And I'm like, uh-oh. So Gothenburg, hello. How much do you trust this new Oslo? Because I don't trust them very much. I want to bounce with them. But it is your center, and it is ultimately up to you. What do you want to do? And then Oslo's like, oh, no, do not bounce. Do not organize a bounce in my center. I saw what happened the last time you organized a bounce in the center of somebody in the Alliance. You happened to walk your way in. Do not bounce under any circumstance. No bounce. Red alert. Stop. And I think, okay, that's your choice. Oslo, you're not gonna stab, right? Nope, not gonna stab. Let's see the moves.
Alright, yeah. So, as we go into the moves here.
Beep, bomb.
Yep.
Oslo stabs.
Yep. They stab for 1, they go up to 3. But this is, I think it's kind of amusing. It's almost like a regime change. Like the people of Oslo forced their Viking compliant leaders out, and they now have a non-Viking compliant leader. But yeah, suddenly this is representing a massive problem for the Vikings, right? Considering it's kind of a big nation slap bang in the middle of your alliance that is fighting you.
Yes.
So,
It's it's just like the biggest. It's just a huge flip. And yeah, it's gonna be rough. So thankfully Gothenburg is still alive because our plan did go through and we were able to get Jutland into Kiel. So Gothenburg is still alive. So that's great. Um, and King of Prussia is still alive. Sadly, Warsaw did not move into Podolia, but King of Prussia did realize what was going on and did try to walk into Warsaw, which was wonderful.
yep.
And I did manage to walk into Wilno, which was also wonderful. I just walked into that thought because Wilno tried to cover Kiev. And Finland also felt like we were at war with the Commonwealth and moved as aggressively as possible into the Commonwealth and is now fully prepared to take Wilno.
It is
Um,
interesting that they didn't go to Kiev. I guess Wilno telegraphed this move too much, eh? If they had, then your attacks would have cancelled out.
yep.
Yeah.
Finland and I were on the same wavelength. It was just wonderful. This is my favorite move of the entire game. This phase right here, because it shows how potent we could have been as an alliance in this public press game with me, Finland, and King of Prussia just knowing what was going on without needing to negotiate in all chat. And so that nobody could see it because we just read the board. We all had the same read of what the Commonwealth was doing, right? They just kicked King of Prussia to the curb. They're not our allies. We need to expand somewhere. They're the natural expansion. Like this is, yeah. So we were on the same page about that, and that was wonderful. So I loved this. Um, and then we should talk more about what I feel about Oslo stabs before we go into builds, and I think we should save that for next video. So let's keep on talking about this turn, and we should talk about you, CaptainMeme. Are you still alive?
Righto, yes, I am still alive. Nantes has been convoyed into Navarre. This is pretty huge for me. Azores went to Plymouth. So, amusingly, a lot of stabs happened here. So Azores goes into Plymouth after assuring, I think, Edinburgh... Well, they basically said nothing about where they were going, right? Edinburgh assumed they were going to Nantes. Edinburgh walks into Dublin at the same time as pretending they would be working with Ireland. So Ireland loses that dot to Edinburgh, but Edinburgh doesn't gain anything because Azores gains Plymouth, but Azores doesn't gain anything because Rabat walks into Azores, but Rabat doesn't gain anything. In fact, Rabat goes -1 in center count because Marrakesh walks into Tangier and Tangier. Tangier walks into Lisbon. Tangier renames themselves to Portugal at this point, so this is...
Praise be.
Yeah. Now I can stop forgetting what they're called. So, yeah, I do actually survive. And this is the first successful convoy of the game. It's really difficult to convoy in Chaos early on, because you have to have your fleet out of your center, right? And then take a move to convoy someone. So it's leaving yourself undefended for a very long time. And I'm quite proud that we managed to pull it off. And I'm also really happy now because there are 0 enemy units adjacent to Nantes. Like, English Channel has moved out to Plymouth, and Azores is quite friendly towards me in any case. I think I posted the meme of, what's the show called? The one with 5. there's like two people waving at each other from cars, and one of them was like me fleeing from Ghent to Nantes, and the other one is Azores fleeing from Azores to Plymouth. We're just passing each other and watching. But yeah, so we have quite a friendly rapport here. Somehow, I have quite a friendly rapport with Rabat, kind of, from the random, basically the banter of I'm gonna come and kill you at some point. I'm still a little worried about Rabat. They are kind of stabbing everyone. They stabbed Azores, who was previously their ally. They tried to stab Tangier. And although Tangier has managed to get it back now, I don't particularly trust Rabat, but we have a friendly thing going on. And of course, I'm friendly with Bordeaux, and I'm friendly with Paris, and Paris's unit is now out on the front line. I don't have to worry about it anymore. I am kind of looking for an opportunity to snipe Bordeaux now, because this unit is not in Bordeaux, so it's in Aquitaine. So now I'm kind of thinking, can I get away with, at some point, going in here? And this is going to be a common theme in the next while. As you can see, the Italians do manage to make progress. They actually get Tunis on side here. And there's a lot of weird moves that don't match up with what's actually happening, like Turanian trying to support Tunis out, and Albaran trying to support Algerian to hold. That's because all of these powers didn't want to give away what they were doing, so they were all going nudge, nudge, wink, wink, you know what to do, right? Which is always a great way to fail to cooperate. But they are making progress here. We did manage to get them to decline the ceasefire with Spain, which was fantastic on our part. And that's all awesome. There is one more thing I need to talk about on this front, but actually I'm going to mention the wheel very quickly first. So Nuremberg went to Prague, right? In this stab attempt.
As telegraphed, as advertised in the sky with the plane leaving the smoke signal behind, so everyone who looked up would have seen it.
Yes. And Freiburg had seen that, so they go, okay, well, I'm going to snipe Nuremberg if they're stabbing my alliance here. And Trieste, at the same time, I think had also, guessed this might happen, so tried to support Venice, who, again, was a preferred ally of them. They were trying to make out, hey, you're Italian, you're on our side, please work with us. They tried to support them into Freiburg, which would have made them survive here, but the Wheels plan for this Switzerland unit is to move it into Innsbruck with Vienna support, and that's what Venice ends up doing. So they try and take this center and they die. And Freiburg ends up with an extra build as a result of this situation. I don't know what Strasbourg is doing here. I think they're supporting Freiburg hold. But yeah. And also, okay, so this is why Luxembourg asked them not to take Luxembourg. They wanted to bounce here. I thought it was Kiel who had agreed to bounce here. It was actually Strasbourg. The one more thing I want to discuss on my front is...
I want to slow down a second here,
okay,
because I just want to point out the Strasbourg bit here with this bounce in Ghent. This is the most insane bounce I've ever seen in my life. Because if Hesse just says, yeah, sure, I'll bounce you in Ghent, and then takes Luxembourg, Hesse is on 3 and is building 1.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What? Why? Why aren't we just taking Luxembourg?
So I think Strasbourg was very loyal to the wheel. At this point, they're still supporting Freiburg hold, right? They're working with Luxembourg. Right. Luxembourg is not very trusted at this point by a lot of people because of what they did to my alliance at the start. But they are trusted by the wheel because they haven't attacked the wheel. So,
but okay, if I want the wheel to do well, and I am loyal to the wheel, you know the best way for the wheel to do well
is for you to do well. Yeah,
is for me to be really big.
I don't disagree. I think taking Luxembourg here would have been an amazing move on the Strasbourg part, but it's not what they decided to do. They had this bounce arranged in Ghent, and now Ghent, Luxembourg can build a fleet in Ghent.
Yep. But, I could have taken Luxembourg and built a fleet in Utrecht.
Yep, that is true.
I wouldn't. I'd have built an army, but whatever. Point is, This bounce is one of the biggest head scratchers that I have of the entire game. Like Edinburgh's bounce in Rockall, like whatever. I disagree with it, but it makes some sense. Like there's hostile invaders coming, I want to keep them out, that's fine. This bounce is just saying I would rather disband than build.
Yeah, it's a it's a bit of a painful one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So,
All right, great. Now that we've had that detour, what were you going to try to tell us about Captain Meme?
okay,
I see
I
you're calling
want
moving
to.
down to Iberia.
I need to talk about
Oh,
this,
the
right?
French fries.
So these are the Porto unit icons, and these cause a diplomatic incident in this phase.
Because what? Bordeaux's supposed to be Italian?
No, okay, so Bordeaux is well, they are part of the French alliance, right? We have this French alliance, which is me, Bordeaux, and Paris. It's kind of been there as like a buffer to the Wheel's northern members as well. We're saying, hey, okay, Paris, you're part of the Wheel. Paris is still very much part of the Wheel. They are not claiming to be anything otherwise. They are saying, yeah, go Wheel. Bordeaux is down here. They're part of the Italians. They're saying, go Italians. But because both of those are part of the different alliances, right? We've got a buffer against both of those alliances because neither of those alliances are going to attack their alliance member. So France is actually sitting in a really nice position right now. So I then go, okay, well, now that Paris's unit has moved down here, right, this army, we're actually kind of weak on this front. I do not trust Luxembourg in the slightest. They just got to 3 as well, right? If they want to attack Paris, they absolutely can. We need a bit more assurance than Paris is part of the Wheel, especially when the Wheel has just stabbed itself. So I go ahead and really push for this idea of, okay, let's remake this France alliance, like, let's increase this France alliance, and let's invite Luxembourg and Strasbourg to it. And
Yeah, 'cause
initially,
we can't trust Luxembourg so much. We're gonna join them into our alliance again. Yep.
yeah, but here's the thing, like, Luxembourg, okay, they did stab my alliance. I don't particularly trust them, but I think they still want to maintain some kind of reputation, right? So I kind of want to drag them and Strasbourg into this alliance properly, so they don't have an excuse to attack Paris without it being like a
Another
stab.
stab.
Yeah, because right
Sure.
now they have that excuse because the wheel has pretty much crumbled. There is kind of no wheel. These members, like Venice is dead. Vienna and Prague are working together. Prague is dead. So it's Vienna and Freiburg are the Wheel's Wheel members, and then we have these powers up here, right? And Salt obviously is still going, hey, I want to kill you, so we're excluding him from this. And I'm hoping that by inviting him, like, Lux into the French alliance as well, he has more reason to just go in and kill Salt. Because he can stab a Wheel member quite easily here, right? So I go ahead and say, hey, can we expand this to include these guys? And that goes down fine with Bordeaux and Paris. They initially go, sure. And Luxembourg goes, sure. Strasbourg doesn't really respond. And then these unit icons appear on the map, right? The Frenchiest fries. That is what Bordeaux calls them. He has designed them himself. I think they're an interesting design. The idea of them, of course, is that they're French fries with a croissant on them, and therefore are more French. The issue with them is that using French fries as like your representation of a food to represent France is going to make every actual French person hate you for life. Because this is not the type of food that the French people want to associate you with. I think I kind of mentioned it in my void. I didn't want to offend Bordeaux or anything, but picking French fries as your French food is the most American thing I can possibly think of. So I didn't say any of this in public, right? I was just like, okay, it's just a unit icon. It's like, it's whatever. Unfortunately, there was someone who said this in public, and that was Luxembourg. He was like, those look awful. Why are you using those to represent France? And Bordeaux took massive offence to this, and then went, okay, Luxembourg is not allowed in the French alliance. If Luxembourg is in the French alliance, I'm out.
Yep, and I guess Bordeaux is more important than Luxembourg,
Yeah,
so...
Bordeaux is more important than Luxembourg. So this idea of expanding the French alliance to include Luxembourg falls apart because of these stupid French fries.
It falls apart because Luxembourg's an asshole.
I mean, that's kind of true. But also, like, I do kind of get it. It wasn't just expressed by Luxembourg. I think Athens was actually French and was just hurting inside from seeing this.
Yeah, but like someone's excited about it and they made a dumb icon. It's fine. There are plenty of dumb icons.
This is true. There are like fun icons all over the map, but like it's just incredibly amusing to me that this causes a diplomatic incident. It's like the kind of stupid thing that you would.
Yeah,
it's just hilarious. But yeah, so that's what's happening in my side of the world. My attempt to form an alliance was taken apart by some French fries. How are things going for you, Ezio?
I have to get into it more next video.
Okay, so
because it's gonna take too long to talk about. We've already talked about the moves, right? Where we've seen where our face ended up with Freiburg going on to 2 and up in Nuremberg, with Oslo stabbing, with me going up to 3, with Finland being positioned to fight the Commonwealth. Yep.
All right.
Yeah, Trondheim is building as well, of course. That's going to be a relevant thing that we'll talk about as we look at the builds for next year. But again, next video.
Yep. So I will move through the retreats here, and then we will call it. Some retreats that happen. This is a fun one. Basically, all of the wheel members at this point, when they die, want to go to Bavaria as like the heaven, because it's the center of the wheel. So previously, it was colored the color of the person who died when Trieste went into Innsbruck, so I guess that's Innsbruck. Now it's colored Prague color because they get to retreat in there as well. But yeah, and so here's the clean map. This is pre-built, and quite a lot happens in this build phase, so we are gonna have to leave it there for this one. We are now in fall 1644, and we will see you next time.